Happy Wednesday, everybody. Happy Wednesday. If you're on here, hit that like button, tag anybody on this show, or share it with someone that you think may find it interesting. I'm excited about today's topic. I think it is much needed, and I think it's going to be good. You guys know by now, the topic of Black love and relationships, Black men and Black women coming together and having families and building a community. I mean, I feel like this whole discussion has been under fire for some time now. So I've had a chance to talk to SYSBM crew. I've had a talk with divestors. Today, I wanted to talk with two different gentlemen who believe in Black love or have, I think, really interesting perspectives on just this whole topic and whether or not it's worth saving. So without further ado, I'm going to bring them on and we are going to continue discussion. So guys, if you would like to show support for the show, you can do so. You can find me on Cash App or Venmo, Shay Chardé. So without further ado, I'm going to bring them on and we'll get started. Hey, how's it going?
What's up? What's up? What's up?
Doing well, sister. How are you?
Good. Thank you for joining.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, as I mentioned before, I've had a chance to talk, listen to both of you guys, hear some of your different content, and, definitely got the sense that, you love the Black community. You love Black men and Black women. And so I wanted to get your guys' perspective on some of these different topics and ideas that have been floating around in the YouTube space for quite some time that are controversial, all kinds of different stuff. But this whole, this whole idea of just Black love, whether or not it's worth saving, I will say this before I get your guys' perspective. The very fact that I think we have to ask this question I think speaks to some deeper issues, some deeper roots, because, I don't really hear the Chinese community going around saying, "Is Chinese love worth dating?" Or you don't
Right.
hear people saying, "Oh, Chinese love. I'm pro Chinese
Yeah.
love, or I'm pro Mexican love, or I'm pro Jewish love, I'm pro Indian." You don't really hear that.
Mhm.
You don't hear that. They just do it. Those communities, they just kind of move and operate and
Sure.
marry each other. And so the very fact that I hear these kinds of conversations coming up, and I hear it being under question, like, is it worth marrying a black woman or not, or is it worth marrying a black woman? Like the very fact to me that these are questions really speaks to a deeper uh, breakdown. But nevertheless, here we are. We got to start
Yeah.
somewhere. So,
But I
um,
think, can I say something to that point though?
yeah, absolutely.
I think this isn't a problem on us as much. For example, Asians have one of the highest intermarriage rates, right?
Mhm.
If you look at the demographics on
Yeah.
interracial marriage, Asians do. I think the reason why this is such a major question is because black love is one of the biggest threats to white supremacy, right?
Okay.
Mhm.
So when we think about these other groups, it's easier for other groups to assimilate into whiteness, and that's why I use the example of Asian intermarriage. I mean, on interracial marriage data,
Mhm.
because it's easier for other groups to become white or to move into whiteness and uphold white supremacy. But if you look at what happens with black love
Mhm.
and the effect that that can have on white supremacy, then it becomes a threat. And so
Right.
since that's a threat, then that's an issue that white supremacy is going to fight hard against.
Okay. Interesting. Interesting. Real quick, for those of you who are on here, I see some people coming in here. Hit the like button.
Live.
Also, real quick before I do the introductions, be sure to be nice to the guests. I know this is a controversial issue, and I have some people who are, like I said, SYSBM. I got some men in here who don't mess with black women. You got that, like there's everybody is in the stream.
Right.
So whatever you do, be respectful. You don't have to agree with everything that's being said, and that's okay. But we can be grown adults and still be respectful and not be saying disrespectful stuff. So if I
Yeah.
see somebody being disrespectful, I will have to respectfully remove you or block you. Moderators, y'all know the drill. So just want to put that out there. um, but real quick, so I do have a few questions I want to get your guys' perspective on, and thank you for sharing that information or your perspective, Travis. I think you definitely brought up some interesting points. But real quick, I just want to have you guys introduce yourself before I get into some of the different feedback. So, Travis, if you don't mind just letting people know what you're about, what you do, where they can learn more about you, etc.
So what's up, y'all? I am actually Dr. Travis. I go by Hood Scarlett Harris because I'm a hood dude, but I got a PhD. So I was gonna say, like, to the comments, like, I really don't care about the comments, right? Because like I know people got shot and locked up, and like little random comments on Twitter mean literally nothing to me. Like people say anything online, but like I've actually been out in the street, so that's nothing.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and but also I'm the director of Black Revolutionary Education for International Black Freedom Alliance, and the IBA is an international organization that believe Black people are smart enough, talented enough to get the school skills and tools necessary to get Black people free. I work with people in Cuba. I work with people in Australia. I work with people throughout the continent, right? So I'm sharing this to show that I came from the bottom and I work with people, with Black people from the bottom all over the world. So even though I got a PhD, even though I did a lot of study and research, what I'm talking about isn't just theoretical. I'm talking about what I've known and learned from experience and actually been outside.
Okay,
Man.
no,
I can't top that. I can't top that. Yeah, so real quick, my name's Alan Obi. I run a channel called We Need to Talk. I do not have my PhD, but
It's
I'm
all
a
good, bro.
filmmaker, and I consider what I do on my channel like anthropology. I'm gathering information. I'm interviewing different archetypes of Black people, and ultimately, I want us to be able to re-identify ourselves outside of a white power structure and prioritize ourselves and our interests when making decisions in the world. So that's what we're doing.
yeah, no,
That
absolutely.
sounds
Like I said,
fire, bro.
Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, no, you have. I mean, I love your channel. I love what you're doing. I love seeing how you're getting different perspectives. I mean, that's partially what this space is about. I think it's totally possible to be able to listen to somebody and try to understand where they're coming from. It doesn't mean you have to agree on every point. It doesn't mean that you have to like every point. But I'm like, at least if you're willing to listen and hear where the other person is coming from, you might be able to learn something. You might actually be challenged. You
Right.
know, so I don't think there's enough listening between, quite frankly, women listening to men. I mean, I know a lot of men out there would argue that they've been listening to women for the last 40 years. So I'm not going to say men not listening to women, but I think it's good to have a space where we can hear people's perspective, their point of view, and at the very least, see, okay, maybe I, walk around learning something different or better. So okay, so just to get right into the first topic, as I mentioned before, this is such a controversial, or not controversial, but it's a hot topic wherever you go. You hit on some interesting points, Dr. Travis, but I just want to first start by defining what Black love is. How would you even define Black love? Because I think it's important that we have a framework before we discuss some of the different variables going on today. So, Dr. Travis, I'll start with you. How would you even define Black love?
Yeah, so I think it is first Black love. First, I would say Black love is not confined to relationships, right?
Okay.
And like somebody said in the comments, always white supremacy. Yes, it is, because let me say it this way: up until 1380s, for example, 1380s was the first incident when a European was successful in enslaving an African. Of course, we know this. There was ongoing battles for centuries later, right? We didn't have Englishmen being successful until the 17th century, but through this point, and actually we had Africans ruling parts of Southern Europe for 700 years. But the point is, we didn't have these issues, right? There was most of our ongoing battles were more about kingdom ruling other kingdoms, right? But there was no sense of I want to be European, right? Telling an African person before colonization that they would want to be a European would be just like, what in the world are you talking about? Because we're looking at our ancestors, looking at our histories and the contributions that we made to the world. Just the pyramids, one example. Even scientists now are still trying to figure out pyramids and stuff, right? So when we talk about who we are as a people, what we have done in the world, right? This question of us loving ourselves was never a question as much as it is now as a result of colonization of white supremacy. So I would say first, and I'll leave the other part up to Alan. So for me, I would just say this notion of love, of Black love, also comes with Black self-love and loving your Blackness and loving who you are as a Black person and all the beautifulness and dopeness and all that goes into what's making us Black. So that's what I was just saying for Black love.
Alan, what do you have on the topic? How would you define Black love?
Yeah, I'm gonna really just piggyback on what Brother Travis said. So for me, Black love is Black priority, right? So like you mentioned, outside of the context of just romantic relationships, I've been trying to preach to Black people that the entire world, not just the Western world, and this is how we're different from our Asian brothers, the entire world is predicated on our dysfunction, right? So I'm Nigerian. And right now, what we're talking about in Nigeria is Asian companies and Asian conglomerates recolonizing the continent, right? To mine our natural resources, to exploit our human capital, and the whole nine. So the East and the West is predicated on our dysfunction, and it's easier to do that when we don't have any exports. It's easier to do that when we prioritize everybody else's products over our own. And in the context of love, when we start prioritizing other people's women, other people's men above our own, we're essentially telling uh, our sons and daughters that everybody else's stuff is better than our stuff. So black love
Ooh,
for me is just black priority.
that's fire, bro.
Appreciate you, man. Appreciate
So you brought up some really good points. I have a few friends from Nigeria. I know a few people who are currently living in Africa right now, and
you.
one of the tensions that I see, at least in the online space, I don't know if this is happening in real life. I doubt it is, but in the online space, there is this huge tension between you know. Whether it's foundational Black Americans or American descendants of slavery, and those
Yeah.
who are, the ones that built this
FBA,
nation.
non-FBA, yeah.
Yeah, FBA versus tethers. And also
Mhm.
shout out to Chantel Simone real quick. I see you here in the building. So good to have you. But tethers, right?
Mhm.
So there's the real, and then there's the tethers and those who are just coming over and disrupting the whole ecosystem. Technically, you said you're Nigerian, you would be considered a
Yeah.
tether. Same as Chantel Simone, another beautiful Black woman, apparently would be considered a tether based upon this,
Mhm.
ideology. So,
Right.
I mean, what do you guys think about that whole thing? If you're an FBA, I mean, I wonder, does Black love include you being with a tether, or does it include you being with somebody outside of the diaspora? I mean, what are your thoughts on this whole thing? I'm
So
curious.
let me just say this first, right? Because I want to hear your response. But first, let me just give some historical facts.
Okay.
Okay. Since I'm a doctor and I've literally studied this in detail.
Okay.
To draw these lines, all these lines that we are making to divide Black people are completely arbitrary. Now, I can provide anybody with sources afterwards. I'm Hood Scholar on all social outlets if you want to look me up. But first of all, when we look at first of all, in Africa, right? When we think about the problem with this whole perspective is we think about culture as something that's static, which means you literally will have to randomly choose one point in time and then create your draw your lines, right? So what becomes West African in the 14th, 15th, 16th century are not the same exact people who were West African in the first century. What that means is the cultural interchange that happened leading all up to that time period influenced who they were in the 14th century. That continued to happen throughout the transatlantic slave trade, right? And then when we look at the transatlantic slave trade, only 5% of left actually came to what becomes the British colony. I'm sorry, only 5% or less comes to what actually becomes the British colonies, right? So only a small percentage, which means the largest percentage from the transatlantic slave trade was the Central South America and other diasporas. I said all that to say then after the transatlantic slave, you had the domestic trade, which meant constant movement and migration in between North America, Central America, and South America. And then there was also immigration and immigration with an I, immigration, as in people who were born here in the States going back to Africa. And then later on, there was a constant movement between Africans from Atlantic, from Africa to the United States. So I laid all that out. I did it pretty quickly to say, what time period are you saying, right? If somebody's supposed to be a tether or somebody's supposed to be an FBA, how do you know that that their ancestor wasn't born in Nigeria and came in the 1900s? Or how do you know that this person who was born in United States, there's a whole dissertation about this, in the 19th century, that they literally went back to Africa? Like, so we don't, so to make some of these claims, you literally have to either rewrite history or just pick a random moment in history and just stop time and say, this is the way things were, and this is the way it is for all of time. So just to give y'all that feedback, just to say that, like, these lines that we are drawing are completely arbitrary. It is better. That's why it's better to think of us as an African, as diverse African people, but as African peoples around the world.
Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, so to kind of piggyback off of that, one of the projects I'm working on is called Bite of Biafra, right? And bite actually has a double meaning. So bite, as well as like a bite, like biting somebody, it's also like a gulf. So a synonym for a gulf is like a bite. So you can call the Gulf of Mexico the bite of Mexico, right? So the reason the uh, documentary is called Bite of Biafra is
Mm-hmm.
because the Gulf of Biafra was one of the locations where about an estimated 1 to 2 million slaves were taken to the Americas. That is a part of modern day Nigeria, right? So the Gulf of the Bight of Biafra and then the Bight of Benin. Why that's significant is because my people, the Igbo people of Nigeria, in 1967, I believe, 1967, 1968, we fought a civil war with the country because we wanted to secede from Nigeria. We wanted to make our own country, and the reason why we wanted to is because we were being persecuted by the larger Nigerian powers, right? So the Yorubas and the Hausas. The reason I bring this up, the whole reason I bring this up is because if you Google an image of the Biafran flag, it is a red, yellow, and green flag. Red, black, and green flag with a yellow sun in the middle. And that flag was directly inspired by Marcus Garvey,
Mm.
right? So a a struggle for freedom in West Africa was inspired by a Jamaican who moved to the Americas and inspired African Americans, right? So when we talk about like Pan Africanism, like our histories are intimately linked. And to the good brother, like where do you want to draw the lines? Now, to play God's advocate just a little bit,
Yeah.
Okay.
I had a conversation with brother Omowale Africa. Omowale is also
Yeah,
Oh
I know
yeah.
that dude
yeah,
too.
yeah.
Yeah.
He
More.
changed his name, after Marcus. I mean, not Marcus. I'm sorry, Malcolm X. Now, Omowale is completely against what Tariq Nasheed is pushing with this whole non-FBA distinction. But I think what I've been hearing from the FBA community is that non-FBAs tend to come over to the United States and trivialize the work that FBA ancestors did to pave the way for them to be able to come over here and become the doctors and the lawyers and the engineers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So part of my work has been also to help put some of those histories in context for us who are coming over here.
Mm.
Because one of the tools that white supremacy does use is us, right? They'll put us in these key uh, locations and these key positions and show the black community, hey, he represents progress, even though this guy's history, this guy's background is not reflective of what was done to African Americans in this country. Right. So I think it's incumbent upon us as non FBAs to also understand the context and be able to pay proper homage to our FBA brothers and sisters who are the reason why we can come over here in the first place. So I understand some of the frustration, but like some of it starts to become OD very quickly.
Interesting. Well, that sounds like
You
that'll
want to
be
respond to
interesting
that,
work. So I'll
or
definitely. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you want to say something?
do I respond to that? You just want to keep going?
Yeah. Yeah. No. Respond. Definitely.
Oh, so the point I was making, it's funny as I was rambling. I actually just went through it pretty quickly because it's a pretty long and elaborate
Mm.
history that I have primary sources to make. So this isn't just my opinion. This is like historically what happened. Um, my response to that, Alan, is one for these. My question is, what's considered non-FBA? For example, I'm gonna get the dissertation for y'all, but there's a dissertation that looked at. I'm here in Virginia, and there are formerly both enslaved and formerly enslaved black people from Petersburg who went back to Africa, and this was
Mhm.
in the 19th century.
To
If they
Liberia.
have children, let's just say they went to Nigeria.
Okay.
If
Yeah.
they have children, right?
Mhm.
Would their children what would their children be identified as?
Right.
Would they be considered Nigerian Would they be considered librarian or would they be considered FBA? Because they were literally enslaved here in the United States. They were literally in the British colonies. That's the whole thing that creates the both FBA and ADOS identity. So if they were the ones who immigrated back to Africa and they have children, how would you classify their children? That's my question.
It gets muddy really quickly, man. I'm with you.
You see what I'm getting there, right?
It gets muddy really quickly. My daughter is an example. Her mother is FBA. I'm non-FBA. So
right. So that's what I'm saying. And that's why I'm saying this. And to your point, yes, white supremacy uses people, but I don't think we should make that a FBA, non-FBA distinction. Because I can tell you again, if you study the history of slave uprisings in this country, bro, there was this one, I wish I would have known about this before this, but there's this one uprising that started. They literally had a plan from Richmond all the way up to New York. They was about to carry it through, and guess what happened? One of the enslaved told the slave masters on it, and it foiled the whole plan. That would be considered an FBA person, right? Who literally stopped the uprising. So do we just say, oh, well, FBAs can't be used by a tool of white supremacy, but FBAs, non-FBAs who come over from Africa can be used? You see what I'm saying? Like all this stuff we're saying, it ain't holding up, bro.
Right. And what's interesting, a more, I guess, contemporary example in Black Panther, what's his name? Michael B. Jordan's character. He references the slaves. Yeah, Killmonger. He references the slaves who jumped off the ship, right? Who would rather die than to be enslaved. Those are Igbos. That's documented. Those are Igbo people, right? So we can't in one breath brag about our ancestry and then in another breath dismiss it because we want to fit some FBA, non-FBA, I guess, box.
Yeah, black folks from Petersburg are Powhatan Indians. Did y'all know that?
So then you guys would both take the position that an FBA could fall in love with a quote unquote tether and it still be black love. I mean,
Absolutely.
you don't. Okay.
I think a black person can fall in love with another black person and still be black love. That's what I think.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Even in defense of the passport bros, a lot of those men actually do love black women, right? They want black women in the States to get their stuff together. But if that doesn't, materialize, they're going to South Africa, they're going to Brazil, they're going to Africa even. So I'm less, I guess, less offended by that because I'm a Pan-Africanist. I want to see black people internationally. So, I'm with that.
I have no issue. I have zero issue because I will say this. I will be honest. I think before I really had a chance to sit down and listen to or understand the complaints of men, I tended to just, for lack of a better term, the typical feminist framework, right? Where it's just like, well, these black men don't really like black women.
Right.
And then these black men are DL. I can remember as a kid watching an episode of Oprah where she brought on a black man who was DL and he was talking about how he was having sex with dudes, but he wasn't gay. Like I remember these images in my brain. Yeah. So I just kind of assumed this, not ever really doing my own homework and not ever really getting the other perspective. And it wasn't until I sat down and started to really understand what y'all was saying, and I figured out, I was like, dang, like I just was misinformed. I was completely wrong. I was completely blindsided by so much of the stuff. So with that, I say that because it's like, if there are men out there, which I think is true, who legitimately, let's say their preference is, you're a black guy and your preference is a black woman, which by the way is really natural. Like most people still do prefer to date and marry the race. If you're a black guy that wants a black woman, but you just are having a hard time finding someone who is traditionally minded or who fits your values because of this, this Western world, this feminist framework, I still no issue with somebody going abroad. I have zero issue with that. I'm like, God bless you. Good luck. I hope it works out. I have zero issue. Now I know there's some women who think that that's just, they're wrong. They're going to take advantage of these women. You know, these women don't have standards. Like all of the shaming that are put upon men who are basically going for the best option. But I'm like, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. So I do want to acknowledge real quick this super chat I got from Jay. Is okay, J Joe 4040. Thank you for the love and the support. I see Shay. If any Latino or non-foundational Americans claim they created hip hop, they're spreading false rumors. Look up Don B and Michael. They teach hip hop history. Okay, thank you for the super chat. Stay tuned. I know this has been. I don't want to get too much on a sidetrack, but even the whole conversation about hip hop that's been a pretty ongoing topic. So stay tuned for that, because I think I want to address it. You know, I like to do, when I do my breakdown on a topic, I like to come with sources. I'm not just coming with YouTube scholarship. Like, I'm trying to come with some sources and some backs and some historians. So stay tuned. I do think I'm going to have to touch upon that, because there has been a lot of confusion out there regarding this. Also, shout out to Godstar499 with the super chat. Says Liberia was the only free country when your ancestors were colonized. African Americans in Liberia sparked Africa's desire for freedom, not garb. Thank you for the super chat. Do you have a response? I see you laughing.
Oh no, that's what I'm saying. Culture isn't static. You can't just say one thing determines somebody's ideal for freedom. Like, nobody just say, I'm just going to go by this one person or this one thing. Like, nobody thinks like that in the real world. There's all these influences, all these different cultural influences that comes into how you view things, how you see the world.
Yeah, and even
go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't.
I'm just saying it can be both. It could have been your fellow Africans. It could be Garvey. It could be all the stuff that goes into what influences it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and all I was going to add to that is, like, you know, even this statement ends up being like a chicken or the egg situation. Like, African Americans in Liberia inspired Africa. Like, okay, were the African Americans inspired by Africans? Were the Africans inspired by, like, it becomes a, you know what I mean? So for me, I just think the most important thing is to pay homage to how everything is intermingled. How even, you know, the Garveys being inspired had to do with studying the truth of African history, right? And then inspiring Africans, who then inspire. And even with the hip hop thing, like some Afrobeat musicians now that are, you know, gaining popularity were inspired by African American hip hop artists.
Yeah.
Who some were inspired by Fela, some were, you know what I mean? So it's you know, but I think the distinction is I understand where it comes from, but the net of it, I think, is useless. And I think if we're not talking about Black sovereignty, if we're not talking about, like today, Black love, we're wasting our time.
Right.
Absolutely. Guys, if you're on here, hit the like button. Show support to the show. Also, you can find me on Cash App or Venmo, Shay Charday. We're talking about Black love. You guys had some you made some really interesting points regarding this whole, like I said, FBA cultural divide, Pan-African, is that, you know, that online discussion. But I mean, it sounds like at the end of the day, y'all are just like, it don't matter where they're coming from. Two Black folks getting together is Black love, period. Like, culture is not static, as you made the distinction, and you brought various examples as to why. So very, very interesting stuff. Now I want to move on to the next question. I don't know if Dr. or Mr. Obsidian is still here. If so, let me know. I know he was here earlier, but because this question, it kind of ties to something that was in his book. He talked about integration. Now it said, the question is, did integration destroy Black love? Again, Mr. Obsidian, he claims that the success of integration shows that Black men and Black women don't need each other. This is one of his arguments in his book, that the, you know, integration and some of the different policies that have been made basically show that there's no longer a need. Whereas prior to that, you know, Reconstruction, Jim Crow laws, those different things, there was more of a need. So in your opinion, did integration just destroy Black love? Mr. Obsidian, also, if you want to hop on, let me know. So I'll start with you, Alan. What do you think? Did integration, did that destroy, or did that hurt Black love?
Man, that's a complicated question. I err on the side of Louis Farrakhan. I think, according to what he said that integration took our focus away from ourselves, and it, I guess, recalibrated our focus to assimilate to the larger culture, which is white people, right? And you know, but the reason it's complicated is because as much as we were trying to build our own things, the white power structure was hell bent on destroying it. So we have to tell both stories at the same time. The separate, but unequal and the whole nine. But I think if Black people were allowed to quote unquote do their own thing, like the Jews have been allowed to, like the Chinese have been allowed to, I think we would be further along.
Okay. No, that makes so much sense. Dr. Travis, what you got on the whole topic?
I agree with Alan. I think on one hand, man, we were. King said, I integrated my people into a burning house.
Oh yeah,
I've heard of that one.
So it's like, dang, yo, like I wish we didn't. Like, I still remember being back in church, and one of the church mothers said to me, integration was the worst thing that happened to us.
Really?
And I ain't gonna hold you. I was a young college student, I went to UVA, so I was a know-it-all. I was like, whatever. I just kind of like brushed it off. But as I got older, I was like, you know what? This mother was right.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
That's just like you said, bro. Like, cause think about it. Prior, we had our own stuff. We had Black stores. Even though the schools were under-resourced, right? So part of we thought the benefit of integration was that our schools that were under-resourced would get the resources that they need. Mm-hmm. But even though they was under-resourced, you know what? The teachers loved us.
Right.
They care for us, and they was providing the stuff that we need. And so we had a sense of Black sovereignty, right? Mm-hmm. But of course, we also know about Tulsa and Black Wall Streets and the parts of how white supremacy actually came in and burnt that stuff down. But at least we had a sense of that, right? Mm-hmm. So I would say I would agree with Alan on that, and 100%. I don't think overall, I don't think Black love can be killed, right? I don't think anything. I think our people are so dope, right? We're so revolutionary. You can even say evolutionary. Like, if you think about the fact that we're here, considering what we've been through from 500 years, from the transatlantic slave trade, Jim Crow, all that. So this one Black scientist who studies evolutionary processes, he said, if you look at mammals and living beings who've been through the type of terror that Black people have been through, they would have become extinct. My bad. They would have become extinct. So the fact that we're still here, I think that because of who we are, I don't think anything can ultimately kill Black love. I think I do agree that it took a hit with integration.
Mm-hmm. So you guys both hold the position that integration, it hurt, at the very least, Black love or Black relationships.
And Black people overall.
Okay, very interesting. Now that's like I said, somewhat, related to what Mr. Obsidian had mentioned in his book. Now, and again, like I said, if you're there, feel free to call in. The link is provided because it'd be interesting to get your take with some of the different things that they mentioned. But I want to make sure I understand your positioning is that one of the reasons that it hurt is because at least prior to that, Black folks were kind of forced to do for themselves, right? They were forced to have their own schools, which they did, their own systems, their own stores. And so to a certain extent, they had to work together. They had to work together.
I don't think maybe you just using force to explain it, but I think they willingly
Willingly. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
like they willing, like the teachers love their students. Like, so in my dissertation, I looked at this predominantly black community that eventually was dispossessed during World War II up to 1942. And I actually have primary interviews from people who live in this black community, and the picture that they paint was one of black love, right? One of a black communal, right? This is where fish fries and all that stuff came out, right? Where
Mm-hmm.
they're just getting together and black people are having a good time, right? Of course, it was hard because they share their stories of them having to walk miles to school, how they had to pass the white
Yeah.
school to get to the black school, right? So overall, life was still hard for black people during this time period, during Jim Crow. They
Mm.
had to fight. They had to deal with the KKK. They had to deal with this white terror. But in the midst of all that, they had each other, right? So that's what I'm saying. They willingly loved on one another. They willingly they would talk about these cookies. The way I'm like, man, I want one of these cookies. Like, and it was just a cookie that somebody baked in the community. But I get the way they talked about it, I guess it was baked with black love. So them must have been some bomb cookies. And they telling me about this in an interview 60 years later after it happened. So
Damn. I want some of the
And
cookies now.
yeah.
Yeah.
Something about too, I don't know. I don't know if it's just because, you had women that had to cook for 40, 50 years, but like I can remember my grandma, like she would make the most basic stuff like eggs, grits, like basic stuff, but nobody could ever make it the way that she did. Nobody could ever it didn't matter how hard you tried, you could never top it. And I'm like,
yeah,
is it just like a touch you get when you hit a certain amount of age? Because she's been cooking for so many decades.
that
I don't
grandmother
know.
love, yo.
But I tell you,
My grandmother biscuits, nobody can. Whew.
right. I mean, I hear you on that. Real quick, I do want to acknowledge I've seen some super chats come through. So shout out to Sir Hale Speaks with the 4.99. I appreciate you with that super sticker. Okay, and then let's see. I think I saw some questions come through too on super chats. So I want to make sure we acknowledge those. Shout out to Game Dreamer 58 with the 10. With the 10 on the super sticker. Appreciate you. Appreciate you. Also, let's see, where else did I go? I think it was Jamari 81 with the 5 on the super sticker. Thank you guys for the love and the support. And then the J John 4040 with the 10. Okay, it says FBA is person classified as black who can trace their bloodline lineage to the slavery. To be an FBA, at least one parent must come from a non-immigrant background in the United States of America. So I think that's defining. I think that's defining the how FBA can be classified. Do you guys? I don't know if you guys want to weigh in on that, but
Yeah, I mean, and I actually mentioned this in the chat. I actually don't mind the distinction, right? I don't mind the distinction from for
me
the
neither.
purposes
Yeah.
of acknowledging each other's, unique histories. Where I start, getting kind of antsy is when, like right now, if you follow Tariq Nasheed, he's started like a witch hunt, right? This, can you look at somebody and tell they're an FBA nonsense or they're
Mm,
non-FBA nonsense, right? And a lot of that witch hunting is rooted in white supremacy. It's rooted
okay.
in the idea that Africans are phenotypically distinguishable from African Americans, and anybody who understands the diversity of blackness understands that's not true, right?
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
grandmother, for instance, was lighter than you, and she's just as non FBA as anybody else. And I have, some friends. If you didn't know, you might assume they were non FBA, even though they are FBA, right? So and that's why I trace it back to, a lot of us came from Nigeria, a lot of us came from Ghana, a lot of us. So a lot of these, minute different. Oh, non FBAs have better hair. I mean, FBAs have better hair.
Yeah.
That's just
Yeah.
not true. Like Ethiopians, Ghanaians, or West Africans have beautiful hair, waves, the whole nine. So I think it does us a detriment when we start making these. I call it childish distinctions to put a superiority inferiority dynamic in play between black people. So, but I don't mind people saying, okay, my ancestors came from the slave trade, your ancestors. I don't mind that.
Yeah, no, I hear you on that.
Mhm.
Same. I think there's nothing wrong to your point with being able to identify the unique experiences
Mhm.
that happen across the diaspora. But that's been my main concern too, is how I've started to see something that's supposed to be about, celebrating or understanding people's unique framework become
Mhm.
a tool to start to promote xenophobia, quite frankly, or to
Mhm.
start to promote
Absolutely.
very, very, very clearly ignorant
Mhm.
ignorant talking points. So what's going on, Mr. Obsidian?
Hey, what's going on, everybody?
What's
Um,
up? What's up?
yeah, I was. This is an interesting question about saving black love, I guess you could call it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just reading in the on the Black Demographics website. They talked about.
Uh-huh.
They didn't use the words black love, but what they found was that over the past 22 years, black men's marriages to black women have slipped by 7 points, and but for
Seven.
black
Okay.
and for
Points,
black
you said?
women, 7 points. Yeah.
Okay.
And for black women, it slipped by 4 points marrying to black men. So it has gone down, but not as much as you would think. Um, make of that what you will. But yeah,
Well, and I wonder, it's been a bit since I've like studied it, but when you say 7 points, are we seeing it that, okay, it's upticking in other areas where it's like, okay, they're not marrying black women, but they're marrying white women? Or is it just like you're seeing, okay, they're not marrying each other and they're staying single? Like you're seeing an uptick in the singleness.
yeah. They didn't really go into it that deeply. So I
Okay.
don't know. My sense is that since the marital trend overall is down, I think, and that's more reflective of it, but I don't know for certain. So
Mm. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what. So I have studied this, and that's
Okay.
what it is overall. There's been a probably you could definitely say the last 20 years, but maybe even 30 or 40 years that the marital trend has gone down across the
Mm.
board for all people of all races in the United States.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Because I mean, yeah, the marriage rate and the birth rate has pretty much
Yeah.
for yeah. No, that makes sense. So, what are your thoughts? I know you've had a chance to listen, and do you have any particular thoughts or things that you want to weigh in, Mr. Obsidian, or anything you want to address with some of the things we've been talking up to this point?
yeah, the whole question of the point that I made in both my books.
Mhm.
And I don't know if well, I know Obi's familiar with them. I don't
Mhm.
know if the
I'm
other
not.
I don't know if he's familiar with the books of Obsidian. But yeah, the argument that I made in them was that I find very often that black scholars don't address mating concerns in the larger context of our story in this country. So how does racism impact? And I know scholars have written about it, but not in the way that I have.
Mhm.
And I'm no scholar, but um but my argument was that as a result of the successes of the civil rights movement and other attendant movements of the 1960s and 70s, there were some unintended consequences that we didn't, perceive or didn't even really think about or consider. And one of those consequences was, I mean, as much as we may loathe to admit it, segregation forced us to get along, to tell you the truth, because we
Mhm.
had a much bigger fish to fry. We were dealing with, day-to-day indignity and very real structural inequity and, potential, danger. That has a way of kind of rallying the troops. And we kind of had to, put other, I guess you would say, first world concerns on the back burner. But after those things were largely taken care of, and this is something else that Black Americans are kind of loath to admit. We're kind of loath to admit that we basically won against racism. Today, we no longer have Jim Crow. We have the situation with the police. True. Every once in a while, you can make a smoking gun case for some type of structural inequity in some type of way. Every so often you can make a case for that. usually what things come down to today is in the area of what some would refer to as a microaggression. That is to say, individual citizens, John Rocker, David Duke, people like that. Things of that nature. But the Bull Connor type stuff, whites and coloreds only type stuff, that's largely, been taken care of. And so we never considered how that would impact family formation, mating, we never really considered how that would impact it. And much of the, debate right now, much of the noise, I'll put it that way, much of the noise generated about swirling, about SYSBM, about passport, that's one of the unintended consequences of, defeating racism. I mean, we were truly set free. And if you're not free to be able to love who you want to love, then you're not free. So what I'm saying is that we're still kind of grappling with what it means to be free. And the most fundamental way it means to be free is in who you want to love. We're still grappling with that.
No, that makes sense.
And I love. By the way, I love the short video you made. I'm tempted to claim a bit of credit for it. The one where you see the white fella who apparently goes out on a date with women every state in the union, right?
Yeah.
And in fairness to him, one of the ladies appeared to be. It was flashing so fast. He did a really quick montage of all the ladies he had dated, right? And so there was at least one who appeared to be black. I can't be certain, but she
ambiguous at best.
She definitely wasn't white. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So to be fair, but even taking that into account, so he dates women from every state in the union, and they all are young and white and pretty. They're slim. There's no diversity there. I mean, because the sister that you were responding to was upset because he didn't date any black women or black women. The whole diversity piece. Mm-hmm. And I actually agree with her. He's right. All of the women, even if you took into account the one lady who appeared to be non-white, I can't be certain she's black because he flashed so quick. But even if you took her into account, they're all young, they're all slim, they're all what would be considered conventionally attractive, right? And your point was he has a right to do that. Dating is not an affirmative action scheme. There's no civil rights here. That's not how it works. And that's exactly the argument I made in my book. That's not how mating works. And what's fascinating to me is that same sister, if she could go to every state in the union and pick the men that she would want to date, I guarantee you we would see the same similar template, cookie color template. And we don't have to speculate on this because we know what turns black women crank. The great thing about black women is they're very expressive, and there are a lot of people who want to know what black women think. So you can go right online and find out whatever black women think on any particular issue, from dating to sex to food to you name it. You go up on Google, almighty Google, and ask almighty Google, what do black women think about this? Bang, you get a whole bunch of responses back, many of them in Google Scholar. Oh, yeah. The Black Academy is very interested to know what black women think about a whole range of things. Yeah. So if that sister was able to do what that white guy did and go across the country and she could have her pick of who she wants to go out on dates with, I guarantee you won't see a Ruben Studdard here, a Kevin Hart there, a Ari Spears here. Ain't going to be much diversity there. So I definitely agree with your point.
Yeah, no, like I said, I saw no issue. Obviously, I mean that's why I did the whole the whole thing, and I'm like, why are we surprised and complaining about a white guy being a white guy? This is not surprising that a white man is going to prefer to be with a white woman. We have years and decades and centuries of this. Like, this is not surprising. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's actually rather natural. To me, these kinds of conversations, when there is such a strange, frankly, and reaction to men something that's quite natural. To me, what it shows is that there's deeper issues on the side of the women, to be quite frank, or there's something going on in the psychology, because I'm just like, why is there such a need to police the dating actions? And I will say, I think this is the first time I've seen openly Black women critique the dating options of white men. I mean, we've seen articles, that kind of try to suggest around the point that, like, oh, apps are racist, men liking women that look like them are racist. Like, we've seen articles and literally educational publications around this, but that was like the first time I have seen, like, blatantly, a Black woman and different Black women who support her say he is wrong for choosing women that look like him. He should be choosing us. That's the first time I've ever seen it.
Yeah, well, it's pretty straightforward. What we're seeing, and this goes back to the argument that I made in my books, what we're seeing here is, and I'm not saying all Black women, so that we're clear for the record, but for the loudest voices in the room, I like to call them, the ones that make the most noise on social media in particular. What they're doing is basically a Jacobin move, for those of you who know who the Jacobins was in history. The Jacobins want to level the playing field by any means necessary. And what they'll do is they go after the people at the top and pull them down. And they don't go to the bottom and pull those people up. That's very hard to do. It's easier to go to the people at the top and pull them down. So that's what's happening here. A lot of these sisters don't want to acknowledge the fact that mating is fiercely competitive. One of the most competitive arenas of human endeavor is in the field of mating. A lot of Black women don't want to accept that it's fiercely competitive. And if you're one of the losers on the outside looking in, there's a reason for it. It's because you're not competitive.
No, it is. It is. Dr. Travis Allen, I don't know if you guys have anything you want to weigh in on his positions or just things that stood out to you, but feel free to if you want.
With regards to the young lady who made the video about the white dude, I saw the video and I thought it was idiotic. I thought it was, it's like people beefing over things they don't own, people beefing over things that don't benefit them, right? And I think that's another result of desegregation and things along those lines. We prioritize other people's interests over our own. And literally his interest in women, we prioritize that over Black men's or our Black sons' interest in women, and why some of our Black sons are, looking elsewhere. So it's sad, but it's funny.
Shay, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on his stance that racism is pretty much done.
I question that. I don't know that I would say that I would agree that it's completely done for a couple of reasons, but I understand where he's coming from. But I think, when you look at the different ways things are, the very least, and now if I'm talking about the diaspora, right? The way I see things happening across the diaspora, I don't think it's completely done. Now, we can go back and debate as to what are the levels of it and how prevalent it is. So I think that's a whole separate discussion. But I don't think that I would say that it's totally done. But where I do agree totally is that I think one of the reasons right now it can get so overplayed is because you have people and you have Black folks who act just a fool or act ratchet and then have bad personal results and then want to blame it on racism. Like, for example, who was that? There was that one individual, I can't think of her name, who was, she's overweight. She's obese, which, look, that happens. Sometimes people have issues with their weight. Like, I get it. I come from a family that,
Thyroid.
yeah, so I get it. I was overweight kid, so I get it. But she said the reason she was overweight was because of white supremacy.
I think you're referring to black feminist academic.
Is that what? Yeah.
At Rutgers University, Brittany Cooper, also known as Professor Crunk, she said on the Oprah Winfrey Network, and this is a few years old, but she said on the Oprah Winfrey Network during one of their powwows for the sisters that Donald Trump and racism in particular, was the reason why she was obese, that the dieting and so forth worked better for white women than black women. And that was her. She made that with a straight face and got applause from the sisters in the
like I said,
now here's the BS. Here's the BS for that. Now let's turn it around. So let's say that a brother is sitting there on I don't know, you use Tavis Smiley, whatever. I'm trying to find a one-to-one analog. So let's just work with me for a second. So let's just say Tavis Smiley was on par with Oprah in a we're going to do the MCU thing and go into the multiverse. So this is Earth, 1911. All right, on Earth 1911, Tavis Smiley is on par with Oprah Winfrey, and you got the same powwow of brothers there, and you got this brother there. He's barely eking out an average living, and he says the reason why he can't do that is because of racism and Darlene Trump. You got a white female Trump, Darlene Trump, and that the moves that you make to become successful, it don't work the same that it does for white people, for white men, that it does for black men. Now, how many black women would have bought that? How many black women would have accepted that? How many? See, the silence says it all. Silence says it all. No black woman.
I'll say this.
None.
I'll say this. I think, part of the reason this racism conversation gets so complex and convoluted is because I think a lot of times we conflate interpersonal racism with structural, systemic, economic racism.
Yeah, that's
For
true.
me, whenever I'm talking about racism, I don't give a fuck if Mr. Joe down the street doesn't like black people. I care if Mr. Joe is the school superintendent. I care if Mr. Joe is the town sheriff. I care if he's a politician, right? So when it comes to that, when it comes to the economics, when it comes to the structural stuff, that stuff didn't go anywhere. Because again, like I said, it is predicated, the white power structure is predicated on our dysfunction. So when I hear a sister, for instance, say, racism caused my obesity, I don't think it's a one-to-one thing. However, for the sake of being thorough, we can't talk about racism without talking about redlining. We can't talk about racism without talking about food deserts. We can't talk about racism without talking about heart disease. We can't talk about racism without talking about the throwaways of the house, chitlins and green beans. I mean, not green beans, I'm sorry, greens that now we consider soul food, even though it's killing us, right? So I don't think it's necessarily racism caused me to be fat, but there is something behind that I think, as scholars, as interested parties, it would benefit us to err on the side of what is this sister trying to say? What is she trying to get across? Even though she might be inarticulate and might be trying to look for something to scapegoat. But there are multiple things behind that. But I think
all right, Obi. Well, let's interrogate that.
Mm-hmm.
I find it fascinating that anytime we want to deal with problems that black women have, we got to consider all the other factors. We got to get to the root cause. We got to look at the society. We got to look at the history. We got to go back to antebellum South. But when black men have a problem, it's on them and them alone to address it. No other extenuating circumstances matter. No other, the history doesn't matter.
Right.
What the white man did doesn't matter. It's only you that's got to deal with it. It doesn't matter how you was raised. It doesn't matter what kind of parenting you had. It doesn't matter what kind of disadvantages you had. You're supposed to man up. You're supposed to pull yourself up by the bootstraps. This is the reason why I say black women aren't leftists. Black women aren't feminists. Black women are some of the biggest conservatives out here. They talk more about the bootstrap talk than the actual white conservatives do. They just aim it at black men.
Mm-hmm.
See, when it comes to themselves, they want all this consideration, all these other causes, root causes. But when it comes to black men, they're supposed to pull themselves up by the bootstraps. End of.
I agree with you. And what I'm advocating for is grace on both sides. But that's true. That's true.
Well, and I understand, correct me if I'm wrong here, Mr. Obsidian, but I think sometimes the passion that I hear, sometimes I think the passionate, language that I'll hear from different men in the space in regards to women in relationships and holding them accountable is because, there's a sentiment of we have to give them grace when they haven't given us any grace. They've had for the last 40, 50 plus years, we've been hearing them. And then now when we're giving our perspective, it's, we'll give them grace. And so I think, I completely agree. I started the show off by saying, as I think there needs to be more times like this where women are encouraged to listen to the perspective of men, things of that nature. I think some of the tensions, at least that I've heard, is that we haven't heard men's side. There hasn't been a 40 or 50 years of, at the very least, black men in this space get their perspective reigning. And I feel like there's some men, correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like there's some men where it's almost like they want things to be even. It's like, y'all had your 40, 50 years where we had to shut up. Now y'all should be able to shut up and let me have my 40, 50 years.
Oh yeah, black men are the biggest feminists in Black America. See, notice the silence again on that. See that's
what you say? Who the biggest feminists in Black America?
Black men are the biggest feminists in Black America. Black men, because black men believe in the principles and the ideals of equality between the genders a whole heck of a lot more than black women do.
Yeah.
Black women do not believe in equality. They may mouth the words, but their actions. We are not who we are not what we say. We are what we do. Black women might say the words. Oh yeah, they'll say the words, but do they actually do it? The answer is no. Black women believe in the equality to the extent that it benefits them. Sure, and they will be expected to. That's human nature. It's human nature to seek out the things that benefit you and try to avoid the things that don't. I'm not saying that they're equal for that. I'm just simply saying that when it comes down to the rubber hitting the road, who's the one that's for a 50-50 love? It ain't black women. Who's the one that's saying, can you help me get it out the mud? It ain't black women. Who's the one that's talking about, loving your person for who you are? It ain't black women. Black women don't talk about no intrinsic physical or metaphysical quality of black men. They don't talk about that. They talk about it for themselves. They don't talk about that for black men. Come on. Can we be honest about that?
I have no pushback
about that. Black women do not talk about the intrinsic spiritual or metaphysical worth of a brother at all. When they talk about spirituality and metaphysics and all that, they talk about that with regard to themselves. They don't talk about that with black men having intrinsic value.
No,
they don't.
No, not at all. Actually, what I will say, I haven't covered this off yet, but I probably eventually will. But what I will say, especially when you start getting into the metaphysical, spiritual, kind of occult realm, you actually see quite the opposite. You see why women have inherent value and how black men have no value inherently. You see those polarizations. It's actually quite toxic. It's a whole nother space.
And they do that with impunity. Mm-hmm. They do it with impunity. Let's be honest about that. We were just talking about recently the black TikTok therapist. If Shabri Rawls' name was Sharif Rawls, I want y'all to listen to this now. If Shabri Rawls was instead named Sharif Rawls, and he was a licensed therapist in the state of Ohio, and he said what he said about black women, not only would he be fired by sundown, his license would be revoked, he would be removed from TikTok, possibly banned from social media by the end of the business work week. And we all know that's true.
That's true.
There would be no debate about, well, should he have his license revoked? There would be no debate. It would be done. It would be a done deal, a fait accompli. We all know that's true.
No.
See, look at the stun side. See, I get this a lot. A lot of places I go where I speak, if this happens in real life, people say, well, I'm sitting, that's just an act. No, it's not. I do it in real life too. People just be sitting there just quietly sipping their drink when I'm talking.
It's like I said, I have no pushback because of just seen and experience. So it's like I know that there are women in the space who are doing a lot of toxic stuff. And when it comes to relationships, there are some toxic ideas. I do not question that one bit. So real quick, I do want to, let me get the Cash Apps real quick that I saw come through. Shout out to Courtney Michelle. It's so good to have you. I don't know if you're still here. Let's see. You guys kind of got buried. I'm seeing all these comments. Where'd you go? And then after this, I know I had a few more questions, so I'll move on. Okay, so Courtney Michelle, thank you. I see the most powerful thing we can do within our community is love one another. Black love, SYSBM. I am Courtney Michelle. If you're here and you want to call in, let me know. SYSBM.
Save your community, black man.
Okay, that's the new one because I know about her stab. Yeah. I don't know if I know this. Save your community, black.
I never heard that one. I like that.
I started posting that. It's a paradigm shift.
Did she start that?
It was one of us. I don't remember.
Okay.
May I don't know if you're finished or not. Please forgive me.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, let me get through this, and then I'll let you, because it looks like Dr. Travis Smith has something he wants to say.
Yeah.
No, I just said I like to say the SYCBM.
SYCBM.
Oh, save your community, black men. Okay, so you're in agreement with that acronym.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Shout out to Victor Creed with the 5. I see there is no witch hunt. We have identified ourselves and will continue to do so. Appreciate the 5. I shout out to Jay John. I see stop it. FBAs can't tell when one is non-FBA. It's not a bad thing. It's just a reality. Yeah, this, like I said, more to come on the. I think probably more to come on the FBA.
I just like the comments are entertaining, bro. I'm just like
y'all confident. That's
okay. They're talking. Wait, you're talking about the different distinctions physically. Now that I don't. As you mentioned before,
confidently, bro.
I haven't met enough black people.
I did not know that there were certain foreheads that the Caribbean had.
I haven't met enough black people. Come to Charleston.
That's news to me. As far as I know, Africa has the most. From what is it? The most diversity.
Genetic diversity.
Yeah. So you will literally find.
I think smokescreen white, yo.
Huh?
I think smokescreen white.
Yeah, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah. So
and the same thing for this guy Norman Henderson. I don't know who he's speaking to. He's very active in the chat. I have no idea who he's addressing, but he's making a lot of making a lot of noise. I'll put it that way.
Okay, I'll have to be in the lookout. Shout out to Mr. Bobby Wright, who's everywhere all the time. Do black women think black men are worth competing for? I think that's a very, very, very valid question. As you mentioned before,
the answer is no. Kevin already answered the question. The answer is no. He did a broadcast called Words to This Effect. You can search it. It's called basically black women think that black men are free. It's like a charity. So the answer is no.
Okay. I don't know if you guys want to weigh in on that.
Oh, that hasn't been my experience.
You said that hasn't?
You know me all the time. So black women, well, all women, but I only date black women. So yeah.
Okay, so you're saying that has not been your experience?
No, not one bit.
Okay. So you have had black women who have definitely been willing to work with you, be loving,
everything,
like
all of the above. I got a hotel room right now.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't know too many stories, but yeah.
I'm not sure as an. I'm going to take it. You're an academic.
No, I'm a hood dude who's an academic. I got kicked out of the university.
Oh, okay.
For teaching the truth.
Okay, so you were.
You can Google Travis Harris VCU. You found out who I am.
Okay, very good. I'm no academic or anything like that, but I would think that an academic would use more than a sample size of one to give any insight on a question like that. The reason why I cited Kevin was because his show at the time was being viewed by over 20,000 people live and pulled in hundreds of thousands of views on the replay. So that's the reason why I cited that. It's probably the single biggest example that we can use in terms of sample size to answer questions like the one the brother just asked. So, that's the whole thing. And
I was just making a quick response. I wasn't even giving
I'm not questioning your personal experience, and that's just it. Who can question somebody's personal experience? I think it goes beyond the personal. Because I mean, me personally, I've been able to find a woman to cooperate with, but does that negate the situation I was speaking to with regard to Professor Brittany Cooper? Does that negate the very real questions that have emerged in a post-civil rights Black America along mating lines? I don't think so.
And that's if we're in a post-civil rights Black America.
Pardon?
I don't even think we're in a post-civil rights Black America.
You don't think that the Civil Rights Act worked?
I taught a whole class. I actually have some publication to discuss this. This framing of a civil rights framing is completely white, right? This even notion. So I've talked to people who were active in the movement in the 60s and 70s. And I asked, where did this idea of a civil rights movement come from? And it actually came from the media, right? So what happened was the original lawyers were fighting for a particular case where they tried to get civil rights.
Okay.
The white media caught on to that and then used that as a propaganda tool in order to frame the movement.
Okay. So why did
report? Hold on, let me finish.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let me go in on this joint.
Yeah, okay. Give us some time.
Started, right?
Go ahead.
In the 60s, because what happened was our people, Vincent Hardin right now has a video up on YouTube. You can Google it. Beyond civil rights towards spiritual democracy, right? Our people never were fighting for civil rights.
So what were they fighting for?
They were fighting for their humanity, for their freedom.
So why didn't they use their own media organizations to push that line?
What you mean they were, bro? That's the whole point. This is why we are on Shay's show right now.
Well, there were tons
of Black media. There was Norfolk newspaper, all of that. But who has the pull to reach the masses? Who is telling the story?
You just got finished answering. You just got finished answering your question.
No, I answered your question.
If Black people have the ability to get their own story out, then what's the problem?
Say that again.
If Black people had the ability to get their own story out the way they want it done, then what's the problem?
No, that's not. No, the problem is you're saying it was a post-civil rights era,
right?
And that's the white story. That's the problem.
So that means that the black media was ineffective.
No. They can't control the narrative.
But that's what media is all about. That's what media does.
Huh? Well, are you saying? I think what he's, correct if I'm wrong, but I don't, because black media, at least within the context of America, wasn't like mainstream. That was not. They weren't controlling. Black people have never been in control of media in America.
Right.
So from what I'm hearing, that's what you're saying. It's like, well, how you failed? How could you fail if you never really existed? If you were never really, I think that's what I hear you saying. Correct if I'm wrong.
Who, me or?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just saying that. I'm saying that there have been Black people 60s who have, even Malcolm X said this, that we not fighting for civil rights. There's actually videos out there now of Malcolm X saying this.
Oh, okay.
We're not fighting for civil rights. He even talked about this notion of human rights, but it wasn't in the sense of human rights of just giving us rights. It was recognizing our full humanity.
Okay, what does that mean?
So what does it mean?
Yeah.
The ability to have power, the ability to make decisions, the ability to self-govern, the ability. So what?
You do have the ability to self-govern.
You gonna let me finish?
Yeah. I'm saying you do have the ability to self-govern.
I do.
Yeah. It's called your
How
vote.
you literally just said that black media was ineffective. So how you gonna say black media is ineffective and we had the ability to self-govern?
Well, you can have both at the same time. You can have an ineffective black media and still have the right to vote.
Huh? Vote for what? They voted for Stacey Abrams in Georgia and she didn't even win.
She lost because she was a bad candidate.
No, literally. Did you see what? Have you talked to people in Georgia?
I actually
literally said their votes didn't count.
I actually have done my research on Stacey Abrams. As it turns out, she plays a prominent role in my book. Let me educate you as to what actually happened in her campaign.
It has nothing to do with the campaign, though.
Let me
actual votes.
Okay, and then
that's what happens with the campaign.
Let me say this because I do have other questions. Mr. Obsidian, drop your point. Dr. Travis, you can make your point, and then
he can have the final word. He can have it.
Well, I mean, it's pretty simple. Her campaign manager begged her to lose weight and get a man. Why? Because Southern white women, have a certain type of figure and they have a man, the ones who matter in elections. Stacey Abrams refused to do either and she lost.
Okay, there we go.
Okay. Well, on that, I did see a few more super chats I wanted to get through. Shout out to the culture clinician. It's so good to have you here. It'll come up. Okay. I see taxation without representation must end. I actually think that this is a follow-up to a previous comment that he made. It says, the black man, let me see. Oops. Where'd it go? Where'd you go? Sorry, it's trying to come up. But I'll read it in the meantime. It says, the black man cannot save the black community until the black community honors and respects him. To do otherwise is self-sabotage. Thank you for the support. I did think I saw another super chat. Move on, and then I'm going to move on to the next question. As this is all related. Again, guys, if you're here, hit that like button. Hit the like button. Show support to the show. Shout out also to Malarkey with the 12 on the super chat. Okay, I see. Is black love worth saving? I don't know, but I believe you should like, subscribe, and donate to your favorite content creator, you Grinches.
That's
Thank
funny.
You, okay, and then I saw Brian Smasher66 says the community is done. SYSBM. There you go. So, like I said, definitely a diverse vantage points of view on this panel. But let's move on to the next question. So, I know, I think both of you guys, identified as being Pan-Africanists, essentially believing in Black unity, being for Black unity all across the board, across the diaspora. With that, and I'll start with you, Alan. Can Black men be pro-Black and have a white wife? I mean, there are many examples of Pan-Africanists who were married to white women. So in your opinion, can you be pro-Black and have a white wife?
No.
Okay.
No. It's a resounding no. And I'm well aware that Frederick Douglass' second wife was white. Mm-hmm. I'm well aware of that. I'm well aware of a lot of our, leadership who's had white wives. But I always go back to an example. I was given like a month or so ago, a brother who watches my channel. He reported back to me saying that he and his girlfriend had just got married, and his day job, he's a tutor, right? He's a youth leader and things like that. And he said it meant the world to him to see how the little Black girls who looked up to him and admired him were able to see themselves in his woman, right? They were able to see somebody of his stature in their eyes choosing them. And that's incredibly powerful. So for me, You know, can you be black? Absolutely. Can you help your community? Absolutely. But in the purest form, can you be pro-black and choose to provide your spiritual, physical, financial resources to another community? No.
Okay. So would you say, as far as like, if you're trying to be a leader, I mean, take for example, what is it? I think Byron Allen, he's a billionaire and he has invested a lot of money into, black media, into black different organizations, but he's married to a blonde chick. So, here's a man where it's like, as far as resources are concerned, he's given money and has given interest into the black community, but because his wife is white and because his wealth will be passed on to presumably mixed children, in your opinion, it's like, therefore he can't be a leader in the space of a black community, or he can't be a leader of black unity.
He can be a valuable addition. He can be somebody worth emulating in other aspects, in his ability, in his intellect, and his ability to achieve certain things. But as far as like pro-blackness in its purest form, it means not just choosing yourself, but also choosing your reflection, and that's a black woman.
Okay.
I have a follow-up question for Alan on that point.
Sure.
So I find it interesting that when these questions come up, it's always focused on black men. Why don't we ask these questions about Eartha Kitt or Diane Carroll?
I agree. I believe the same.
Or Serena Williams. Or
I believe the same with them too.
Why is the conversation always only focused on black men? And we got to go all the way back to Frederick Douglass, and then we got to bring it up forward to Robert F. Smith. But we never mentioned Gabby Sidibe. We never mentioned Tika Sumter. We never mentioned Serena Williams. We never mentioned Eartha Kitt. We never mentioned Diane Carroll. We never mentioned Maya Angelou. Their blackness is never called into question. They can marry a green alien from outer space in Star Trek. Their blackness is never in question. But a brother like Robert F. Smith can get hundreds of brothers out of debt purgatory from one of the most storied HBCUs in the country, and we got to debate whether or not that's black enough because he got a second wife who's black. It don't matter that his first wife was black. We got to go talk about his second wife who's black. Why is that? What is up with that?
That's funny.
I think it's funny. I will say this. I don't. And again, this is just thoughts, feelings, observations. I don't say I have a ton of sociological data. Just my observation. I think now, whether or not it's right or valid, although black women, I think by and large, very much bought into the independent woman. I'm an independent woman, boss babe, I don't need a man mindset. The expectation is still that men are going to build the community. Even if you think about the acronym SYSBM, save yourself, or save your community, black man, like that's the expectation. Women are looking to men to be leaders and to build, although there are at the same time clear messages being put out there that we don't need men. So I think sometimes this is what I I can say this honestly as a woman, where it's like we'll talk out of both sides of our mouth. Like we're saying things that are contradictory. We want to be strong, independent. We don't need a man, and yet we are upset when the community, and men are to blame when the community are not at a certain level. And that's where, if I'm being honest, I personally think there can be a bit of a double standard, and there needs to be consistency there. Because I'm like, to your point, if the standard of loving yourself, loving your community is this for men, then it should also be there for women. I do agree with that.
That's more evidence that black women are not feminists. That's more evidence because black women don't believe in equality. There you go, right there. That's an example right there. Now the argument goes that we do it for black men more than black women because black men are supposed to be the leaders of the community. And that brings up an interesting question. What do black women owe the community? What is their responsibility? What is their duty to it? What is it? When we talk about the community, we only talk about black men's role. What is black women's role to the community? What do black women owe the community? And how does it manifest?
Good question. Good question. Now, I did want to give also Dr. Travis a point to weigh in on the question of whether or not you think you can be pro-black and have a white wife. So know your thoughts on this question, or just any thoughts on the questions that Mr. Obsidian has.
Yeah, I don't know what's wrong with my screen. I actually agree with what Alan said. I think part of the issue is people. So first I say this, like human beings grow and change and evolve, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm wondering about all those cases is, say this dude or this woman, and just to be clear, when I say this funny, it's more about Obsidian's performance and the way he like. I wish I could see your face, bro, but it was more your delivery that was funny because he's like the community. But I actually agree, right? I don't think that we need to have a double standard. I don't like how they like Serena Williams. That's a whole like it looks like she even got surgery done on her face. Have you noticed that?
I haven't.
Wait, one more time. You didn't notice what?
Didn't it seem like Serena Williams' face got brighter or something?
Oh, lightning! I heard speculation about that. You know, I'll say this. I think because I understand how filters work. You can look at one filter and it'd be super light, and another would be dark. So I look at that, and it's always hard for me to tell if it's just like a filter or if it's like, no, the person is legitimately lightening her skin. I don't know, but skin lightening is common. It's very, very common, and so I wouldn't be surprised.
So Obsidian is 100% right on this, right? Because Serena gets a hard pass, right? She can do nothing
super
wrong.
Hard pass.
She can do nothing wrong. So I 100% agree on that. For me, the question becomes, and this is probably, so what happens, right? If a dude married a white woman young, but then he comes to a certain level of consciousness, then for me, that's where I'm wondering, like, because I agree with Al, right? I agree with Alan that black women need to be with black men and black men need to be with black women both ways. So if a person marries white young, my question is, what if they come to consciousness? What happens next? And to me, that's a heavy question. And it's funny, like a joke on the I don't know if y'all remember that Chappelle skit when Clayton Bigsby won. At the end, it was like he divorced his wife for being a Negro lover. That joke was hilarious, right?
I remember that skit. Yeah. The black white supremacists, that was hilarious.
So I'm like, dude, are we going to get to the point where we telling somebody to get a divorce for the cause? So like, I ain't gonna lie, I don't know the answer to that, right? So for me, like, I agree with Al, but in those cases, like, I don't know.
Well, hang on a second, because I don't mean no disrespect, but I got to get an answer to this. If we're talking about Robert F. Smith, fair enough. His contribution to the community in the form of hundreds of millions of dollars to bail black men out of. He was doing this before Joe Biden was talking about forgiving debt relief. This is a private citizen. Robert F. Smith went in his own pocket to help black men get out of debt from Morehouse. Okay. What do black women owe the community? What is their duty to the community? What do they owe the community? And how does it manifest? I need somebody to answer that question. If the answer is nothing, then we should just say that.
No, I was just trying to, I will say, I'm just trying to stay like in the flow of things. So the answer to that question, I think they require the same thing that black men. Like, we both require giving of ourselves for black people, like we've been doing for hundreds of years now, thousands of years now. That would be my answer.
Well,
so let me ask a follow-up then. If that's the answer, and if the question is, who you get with says something about your commitment to the black race, to the black nation, to the community, then how many black women having babies by losers, is that a sign of their commitment to the community? Is it? If black women are having babies by losers in black America, what does that mean about their commitment and their love to the black community?
I think it's I'll say this. Even when I think about some of the major some of the major content creators and the major messaging going on to Black women at large today. Okay, soft girl era or soft life era, prime example, where women are not being taught cultural loyalty. Women aren't even being taught how to be wives by and large. This is where I talk about wife culture, where it's like if you understand other communities that are they have a very strong cultural center, and you go to weddings and they have maybe a white wedding and then they'll have their own cultural wedding, and they have communities like they already have a culture. They're raising up these women to be wives. They're raising up these women to be culturally loyal. They're going to their own schools. They're going to their own, they have their own communities where it's like they're constantly being reinforced. Even in America, they're constantly being reinforced. They're like, yeah, you're in America, but you still have these cultural customs and values that exist for other cultures. That's not happening for Black women. Black women are being told that they deserve a soft life. This hypergamy messaging, women are being told, they're using imagery from like Bridgerton, literally, for lack of a better term, literally looking to white femininity, quite frankly, looking to white women and the things that are natural to white women, femininity for white women, and they're wanting to do and be that. And so I think if it's not being taught by and large, which I don't think it is, another case in point, I had the interview with a lovely lady earlier this week, and she was honest about the fact that she didn't wake up until she was in her 50s. And now she got it together, but she said up all those decades, there were different things that she was doing, and she could say, I was doing it wrong. This is a woman in her 50s. So it's like, if we have a generation of women who are not teaching some of these different things, not instilling the importance of being wives, not even instilling the importance of cultural loyalty, or even why you should love your culture, why you should love who you are. Because I think if people grow up knowing how to love themselves and have a strong sense of who they are in the history and what makes them unique and beautiful, then you don't have to police their dating so much, because they're going to naturally choose what they love. But without that, and I will be honest and say that I don't see that existing by and large, at least in the Black America, culture of women in Black America. Without that, then I think we kind of have what you have today, which is Black women deserve luxury, or this very individually based mindset, but there's no thought about the community top. That's what I would say as far as women are concerned. I could be wrong, but those are just observations.
Yeah, and I don't have a problem. My thing is, I have no problem with what the ladies want. That's not I have no issue. Soft girl, like whatever you want to call it, lady of leisure, whatever. I have no problem with that in and of itself. My problem is, number one, that once again, we don't adhere to a standard of equality. We have one set of rules for Black men, and then we have one set of rules for Black women. That's one problem I have. The second problem I have when we're talking about this commitment to the community, insofar as who you marry and what the product of your union produces, I just looked it up. Robert F. Smith bailed out 400 brothers from Morehouse to the tune of $34 million. But because of the fact that his second wife is white, that's null and void. So my question is this: in addition to asking what responsibility and duties do Black women have to the community, exactly how much do Black men have to do before what they do for the community is considered valid? Because we know 34 million ain't enough. So ladies, give me a number. What is it? Is it 100 million? 500 million? 750 million? A billion? Give me a number. How much does a brother have to do and produce before he's considered legitimate in the community? Give me a number.
I don't think a number exists, if I'm being honest.
I guess for
I
me,
don't think another exists. But
so I'll just say a couple things. One, I don't think Alan said this, and I'm not saying that what he did doesn't matter or his white wife whitewashes out his contributions that he made to those Black men. I think that's dope, actually. I think for a larger community question is that we don't have that many Black male billionaires, period.
Yeah.
So looking at the masses of us, right? I don't know if that can be the standard to say, oh yeah, if you can just go ahead and give out $400 million, then hey, you good, you did your work. So that's what I say to that. On the other hand, I agree with you. I think both men and women needed to be given to the Black community. I agree with you. I'm on record saying I'm against Black girl magic, and I'm against Black girl magic because of this very thing. What does it do? It promotes the success and elevation of Black women at the expense of Black men.
Yeah.
So if you watch the movie Hidden Figures, right, you would think that there were no males working in NASA during the time of what's her name? What was the Black scientist on there?
I know you're talking about like the mathematician or something.
Yeah, the mathematician.
Yeah, I can't think of her name.
I was like, you know what? Let me go do some research on NASA. There were plenty of Black men there, but you literally have a whole movie with nothing but Black women working with a Black mathematician in NASA.
I didn't know that.
You literally had to rewrite history.
Crazy.
In order to push this Black girl magic. And they get all these awards. They get, Taraji P. Henson, she's a great actress. And this is literally going against the Black community. So for me, I am against this whole Black girl magic, this whole uplifting Black women, especially when it's at the expense of Black people as a whole.
No, I hear you. Like I said, I completely and totally agree. And let me see. I had a point. And
she said we triggered by the Black girl magic.
What'd you say? You said y'all triggered.
It's got some crazy people in these comments, bro.
It's not triggering, but I think here
it's harmful to us. There's no other way to say it. It's harmful because it's saying let Black women get ahead while they literally rewrote history. They literally took Black men out of the movie.
I didn't know that happened. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, go do research
great
on NASA
example.
in the 40s and 50s and 60s, and you will see that there were Black men working in there. And not one Black man was working in NASA in the movie.
Well, and this brings me to another thought, because at the end of the day, and actually after this, I do want to. Well, let me read through these super chats because some of these super chats actually speak to some of my points. So first off, shout out to Woke Quill with $5. He says, SYSBM versus SYSBM, which offers the man a better deal? I think that is a very, very solid question. Well, and this brings me to my point. Mr. Obsidian made reference to this in his book about there being a beauty deficit in the Black community. Now, you can look that however way you want, but his argument is that there is a beauty deficit within the Black community. Secondly, I think it's fair to say, based upon the current discourse in this space around Black love, that Black men by and large are not inspired by Black women, at least in America. I don't want to speak for other nations, but I'm like, if we think about just dating, mating in Black America, Black men by and large are not inspired by their women. And, the late Kevin Samuels mentioned this, right, about women being, feminine friendly and being inspirational, how in a natural, healthy setup, men are inspired by the women that they're with. They're inspired, whether it's to be with them. Some men are inspired to even want to do or produce more. That's somewhat of a natural exchange when men and women are working together and it's healthy. There's an inspirational component. Men don't seem to be inspired. So I'm getting this sentiment, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but I'm getting this sentiment that there's a lot of men who are just like, why am I going to break my back for a community that includes women that don't inspire me? Actually, that includes women who have made it very clear that I don't matter to them. And I think there's a lot of men who feel like this community that we're fighting for isn't worth fighting for because it doesn't value me individually. It's shown me, whether it's the different movies that you have shown, some of this different messaging, it's shown me in my own personal experiences, my own trauma, that I am not valued. So why am I going to break my back for this? This is the sentiment that I'm getting. Correct me if I'm wrong on this, but that is what I continue to see. So like even this comment right here, he's just like, well, why am I going to save the community? That's not. It's a better deal for me to go with what makes me happy individually. Forget about the community.
Mm-hmm. I mean, if I can respond to that, and I only turn the camera off because I have my daughter. But
it's okay. No, it's okay.
So the thing is, and this was kind of my point in the beginning. Black love, when I think about it, the way that I think about it, it's not butterflies and sugar and roses. It's we're literally fighting for our survival. We're literally fighting for our posterity. So it's not about convenience. However, I do understand the argument that does one owe the community a duty first, or does the community owe one a duty first?
Mm-hmm.
And does that dictate how, however a person feels responsible for or dismissive of the community? I think that's a good conversation. I think that's a good argument. I'm just saying that my position is one that if we are going to, yeah, that's right. If we're going to commit ourselves to rebuilding this Black community for the people who are interested, because I know some people, they just want to watch it burn. But for the people who are interested, if you're going to commit yourself to saving this community, there's some sacrifices that are necessary, and power and leadership have to be taken. And that's kind of what she's saying too. But that's that's pretty much my point, right? I'm not in the business of convincing people, and I think that's why I get some of the criticisms that I have. I'm just speaking to the people who haven't lost hope, the people who haven't lost faith. But if you're interested in an echo chamber that's just going to reaffirm what you already think, that's fine. Like I've said on several occasions, my work isn't necessarily for you. But for the people who are interested in the Black community, who are interested in the story I told you of little Black girls lighting up when they saw their mentor choosing somebody who looks like them, if you're interested in little Black boys not being exploited for their labor for the next 20 years or the next 40 years, then there's a different paradigm and a different approach that you must have in this conversation. But I understand some people are not interested in that. So yeah, save yourself, Black man.
I completely agree. I completely 100% agree with you on that. Where it's like, again, going back to, because I definitely believe in, working with those who are like-minded as much as I can, and also at the same time, it's like you can convince somebody who thinks that they want to take a different route. That's their right. That is their right in America. If you want to, focus on yourself or do what you think is best for yourself, and that doesn't include working with the community, like no issues whatsoever. So I think we're adults enough to at least be able to have these conversations and, agree sometimes, respectfully disagree. But I think if nothing else, you can walk away with some takeaways for sure. Shout out to the Culture Clinician with the 5 on the super chat. It says there is no monolithic university of Black consciousness. There never was. Selective servitude when their power is not in her hands. Men need care. Shout out to you for the support. Also, we see Moto, the international mango lover. SYSBM is the only logical option at this point. The damage is beyond repair. I appreciate the damage is beyond repair. It will only get worse. Yeah, I know a lot of men are just like, you know what, this just isn't working for me. And with some of the different stuff I've experienced, and I'm sure Chantel Smoke can speak to this too. Some of the different stuff I've seen and experienced personally, it's like I'm truly not mad at a man that says, you know what, American women or women in the West are not worth it for me. I'm gonna go abroad. It's like I can't even get mad at that. I'm like, good luck.
Here's the thing with that though, if I may. So I've heard a number of ladies. Mm-hmm. I don't know the exact number of ladies who have weighed in negatively on this, mm-hmm. but I have heard a number of ladies online, I won't say their names, who have weighed in on this, and what they say is these brothers are dealing with third world, and I quote, dirty foot bitches, end of quote.
Oh God.
Okay, that's what the argument is, that these guys are going to the third world to get women. Okay, all right, I'll take that. Here's my response. If you're losing to a dirty foot broad in the third world country, what does that say about you, sister? If you cannot beat the competition in a third world country with dirty feet, what does that say about you? That's my response.
I mean, honestly, and this is something that I mentioned before, where it's like, instead of us being so quick to judge, we should first be asking ourselves why. Why is there a large or significant amount of men that feel like the best option to them is to literally spend more money, basically inconvenience themselves to go to countries they don't know, cultures are not familiar with, to try to find somebody? Why would somebody willingly leave their own country, leave their culture, context, whatever, go to a culture they're not aware to try to find a wife. What is that saying about what's going on? So I'm one that says, let's try to at least understand where they're coming from first before we be so quick to judge or to pass judgment. So really, really good points. Shout out to Fawcett Media. It says how you kicked off. Oh, and feel free to answer this, or if you don't want to answer, no worries. But teacher's asking a little bit more about your educational track.
Yeah, so I'm a hood dude, right? I'm a hood dude in the academy. I was spitting that fire, and they figured it out. They came up with some BS. Literally, they said they in the one official document that they gave me a month and a half after they kicked me out from teaching. They said it was because of student complaints. How many professors don't get student complaints? Which is crazy. I don't know. But they just didn't want, because I didn't, when I was teaching, I didn't wear bow ties and khakis and all that stuff, right? The same way I am now is the same way I was in the classroom, and I just kept it a buck the whole time. So yeah, and so two things that I got hard evidence. The dean said, because during orientation, so let me just say this real quick. The hood I'm from is in Richmond. So I grew up in Holland Park in Richmond, Virginia. VCU, the position I took was community engagement. So I was going to be assistant professor of community engagement in the Department of African American Studies. I'm hyped because I get to go back to my hood where all that stuff happened, but now as a PhD. So I started doing orientation, doing my introduction. I say, hey, what's up? My name is Travis Harris. I actually am from this hood, right down the street. When they was doing the investigations, during the investigation, the dean goes on record saying, if I'm a new professor, I wouldn't introduce myself that way as someone who's from the hood. He said that in the investigation. And when I emailed the chair, so because it was the deans and the chair who made the decision, I was zooming in Tommy Curry. I don't know if y'all know Tommy Curry.
Yeah.
But I was zooming him into my class. I changed my Zoom name to Hood Scholar. I didn't know by changing my Zoom name to Hood Scholar that it would change my email alias to Hood Scholar. So when I did that, I emailed the chair. The chair responded. He said, "Do not conduct any professional or VCU business with this email address." I'm like, why is that? And I didn't know it. I realized, it's because he changed the Hood Scholar. A couple of months later, I'm gone. So I'm writing a book to give you more details, but that's what happened. That's how I got kicked out. Okay. I do want to answer your question though, and about what Alan said. Like, I ain't gonna hold you, right? Even with the VCU situation, there was the students who complained. One of the students was a black feminist. So I am intimately aware of how these gender wars are affecting us because it played a role in me losing my job. Right? So I completely understand where a lot of black men are coming from. And I could feel the same way myself. The reason why I don't feel that way, couple of reasons, but one, I do feel like there's something that my purpose is big enough for me to go through that, for me to ultimately do something great. And two, like I said at the beginning of the show, I actually work with people, black people all over the world. I work with black men and women in Cuba, in Brazil, in Australia, in Nigeria, in South Africa, and all over the United States in California. And so in these people that I'm working with, these are people who are committed to black liberation and love and black love. And so in my organization, we say black unity plus black love equals black power. So to wrap it all up, on one hand, yes, I understand it because I personally, it actually played a role in me losing my job. But ultimately, I'm going to take the step of faith because I still believe in black people. I still believe that we smart enough, talented enough, and got the skills and tools necessary to get free.
I have a question for you, brother, Dr. Harris. You said the gender war. Well, you didn't say this. This is what I'm taking from what you're saying. That the gender war cost you your job. Would that be fair?
Yeah, it played a role. It wasn't the only thing, but it definitely played a role. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm trying to understand, how does the gender role have to do with you losing your job? Because I'm not. That's not.
Oh, so one of the students. So when I that same lecture that I had Tommy Carey to lecture. So you don't know this, but I'm actually a Black male studies scholar.
Okay.
So I actually was teaching on. I have a special issue that just came out. Y'all can look it up. It is on my social media outlets where I lay out what Black male studies is, and Black male studies deals with a lot of these same questions. So I had Tommy Carey to come in lecture, and we just intellectually destroyed a lot of these arguments about Black men. So, for example, this whole notion of toxic masculinity and hyper masculinity, right? If you trust the intellectual lineage of this actually comes from white racist social scientists. White racist social scientists were studying Black people, right? And they said, get this, that toxic masculinity and hyper masculinity came from, listen to this, the absence of the father in the home. So it's pretty ironic, right, that Black feminists use this point of toxic masculinity and hypermasculinity when it really was originally a point to say that you all as Black women were bad parents that were creating these hypermasculine men, because these hypermasculine men will overcompensate, right? So we was going through this literature in class, and I had a Black feminist student in the class. And the Black feminist student, and the other thing was, I was recording my lectures.
Mm-hmm.
So I recorded the lecture. So this Black feminist student made up this whole story that she said that I was anti-Black woman, I was anti-Black feminist, I was anti-Black gay, I was making fun of students, all this stuff. If you listen to the lecture, we didn't do none of that. We really talked about Black male vulnerability and black boys as sexual victims, and all the ways in which Black men are victimized, right? We were actually drawing light on and focusing on the issues that we deal with as being both Black and male.
Mm-hmm.
She took one comment that Dr. Carey said. He said, I don't have a problem with Black feminists, but I have a problem when Bell Hooks says that Black men are participating in a suicidal ritual, a suicidal act, a ritual of because you know her quote about the Central Park Five, right? So it's like, hold on.
Mm-hmm.
How's she gonna say this? And I'm supposed to be a Black man supporting this, right? So we say, we have an intellectual problem when you pathologize the Black men, because you don't have any footnotes. You don't have anything that's confirming the way that you are describing Black men.
Mm-hmm.
So as a scholar, our role is to challenge this. So that's what we talked about in class. She write this email to the chair, and next thing I know, I'm meeting with the chair.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's fucked up.
Yeah,
You're muted. You're muted.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
All right, I said thank you for sharing your story. I didn't know that you were specifically Black male studies, so very interesting, and that's also not surprising how you could get backlash, because I know Black male studies is rather controversial, especially in
for no reason other than just saying that Black men have value. That we don't make any crazy claims that they're coming up with. Only thing we say that black men are more than just rapists and killers and thugs and all that.
Right. No,
What's interesting to me, so we was talking about Robert F. Smith earlier, and listening to Dr. Harris give his account of the events that led up to him losing his position in a university setting. What I find fascinating is a lot of Black women tend to focus on, and I'm looking at this one sister in the chat, and I'm going to use the phrase she used, 3 trash bag dusties, right?
Oh, so, I didn't see that one.
Yeah. And what's fascinating to me is, why are so many Black women, even those in the academy, focused on dusties? And the only time we want to say something about the Robert F. Smiths of the world is when he comes to prominence with a white woman on his arm. I'm just fascinated by that. It's like, we can't see the full range of black masculinity. We can only see either 3 trash bag Dusties or Robert F. Smith with a white woman on his arm. That's fascinating to me.
I mean,
they're sleeping with them. That's what my thought. I'm like, they're sleeping. This is just my personal opinion. Because if you don't really care, a woman who doesn't really care about a man or is not interested or whatever, isn't giving them the time of day. The woman, or the men that these women complain about, they're sexually attracted to in some capacity. They're upset that they can't have them. They're upset that they at the least weren't at their disposal. You made reference to this in one of your books, right? Where women want the right of, you say black women want the right of first refusal. Yeah. And I think there is an element of truth to this, because again, if you really don't care about a guy, you're not talking about him. He's not even on your radar. You kind of just, it's like you ignore him. And so my humble opinion, the reason that they are so complaining about these guys is because it's what they're picking. It is. Well,
there is somebody in these streets. I will not say the name, but I'll just say that the initials are C and G, who talk so much about the failings and the foibles and the faux pas of black men, but then we come to find out that she's spending some significant time with such people. So I think that you're right, Sade, and I have said this in writing. It's been my opinion, my observation, that sisters like C and G, I will not go any further, they tend to talk about the men that they're spending significant face time with, if you will, keeping company with. Black women don't tend to talk about black men. Black women, as a general rule, don't tend to talk about black men that they are either not keeping company with or would like to keep company with. They tend to talk about the men that they are either keeping company with or would like to keep company with.
Well, like I said, I don't. And the reason I don't, I'll say this, and then I'll move on to the next super chats. I had a conversation, lo and behold, last night with one of my good friends. Older, she's probably 66, 67, older white woman. And she was telling me about a mutual friend that we know, an older black woman in her 50s who is has a high power job, makes a lot of money, really successful, single, and depressed. I mean, just depressed. And she was actually talking to me because she was like, we were talking about different things, and she was like, how can I help her? Like, she's trying to understand what's going on. And make a long story short, she went on to tell me, because she's known this woman for years, and I've known her from a distance from years. She wanted to tell me that this, older, successful black woman in her 50s had countless opportunities of men after men who came into her life. I mean, one that literally they were in love. I think he proposed to her or something. Like, men after men after men who wanted interest, who were willing to give her the time of day, and they weren't good enough. So now here she is in her 50s, and she's depressed, doesn't want to go to therapy, but she is depressed.
What was that?
Huh?
Did you just say that she does not want to go to therapy? Did you just say that?
Well, she won't. Okay, she won't openly say it, but she'll be like, okay, I'll go, and then she won't go. And then she'll make all these excuses. And then sometimes sometimes it's like, okay, you read maybe a devotional book, you may even have a prayer. Sometimes you go to church, all these different things. Which
she wants to take it unto prayer.
Huh?
She wants to take it unto prayer. That's what she wants to do.
Which I love prayer. I do prayer and therapy. So I'm like, I'm for all of it. But basically, make a long story short, she's observing this woman, and she's like, and she's miserable. And I'm saying this because I've had conversations with this lady, white lady, who I'm just like, this is your friend, but I think she's jealous. And there's reasons why. And I'm looking at her, I'm just like, this black woman, in my humble opinion, is jealous of this white woman where she's at, because this is, she's married, housewife, has kids. She didn't have a perfect life. She had a lot of struggles. Let me tell you, a lot of struggles. Mm-hmm. But she's retired housewife, has a home paid for, living pretty comfortably. Mm-hmm. And here's a single, successful black woman, has her own stuff, but she's alone, and nobody's knocking on her door. But the crazy thing about it is, I'm saying this to say, she was telling me the story, and she's not even fully aware of all the dynamics in the black community, of all the different stuff, the strong, single, independent woman. But she's telling me about her friend, and she's so concerned, and I'm just like, this is literally the book that you wrote. Mr. City, like every single thing that you said, all of the different woes and the ills, I'm like, I'm seeing it manifested in this woman, and it's crazy. And I'm saying that because, again, um, these concerns, they're not. I think they are valid concerns. The concerns that some of these men have, I feel like I have to go abroad to do it. Even some of the stuff that you brought up, Doctor Travis, as far as the different issues that you had as you were just trying to speak for men being human and not being offensive. It's like, I think it speaks to a deep, dark root that exists in some of the Black women today. And I don't want to say it's all, but it's a significant enough amount where it's like, we have to be willing to talk about this and address it honestly. It also talk about how it has impacted men and has impacted this whole desire for the community and the community, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So
that's interesting. That's very interesting.
Yeah. But okay, so let me there are also a few of the super chats that came through. Thank you guys for bearing with me. And also, guys, if you're here, hit that like button. We've been talking about Black love. This has been a very interesting. And you guys have all made some great points. I love the diverse perspective we have on this panel, and how you guys are able to share your points, whether you agree or disagree. So hopefully you guys are getting something out of this. I'm trying to find these super chats because they're kind of all over the place right now. Shout out to Curtis. You guys, I'm sorry. Bear with me. I'm having some technical issues here. So while I pull that up, let me try to bring on the next question because I don't want there to be too much of a lull, and I'm going to go back and find them. Let me direct this to you, Dr. Travis. I'll start there. This is something that I think is rarely talked about, but does impact the Black community, and that is, I think, the class issue. A lot of Black women, even those who are low class, who I would argue want a upper class lifestyle. Do you think class differences make Black love difficult? I'll start with you, Dr. Travis.
Well, so let me say it this way. Part of it, and I've seen this so many times in higher education, and I'm sure it's the same in a lot of other professionally driven jobs where you have to do advanced either schooling or training or something. What I see happen so often is Black people with Black people, most people, Black people do this too. They get so caught up into whatever they're pursuing that they be like, "Oh, I don't need a man. I don't need a." You see what I'm saying? And so they look up, right? They got the degree, they got the job, they got the partnership, whatever, and they 30-some years old. So you think about how this happens, right? Because you go to school, you get your undergrad, you might either work or go back to school to get your graduate degree, and then you go get the professional, and then you working, and this can easily take 10 years. So that time period, and so then what happens is, right? And I even said this to some of them because I know it, because I talked to a lot of people. I'm like, bro, you didn't invest any time in having a relationship with somebody. Mm-hmm. So if you do not, so are you how can you have a plant or a flower if you don't give it time to grow? So, so my thing is, and it's just like, for me, it just seems like unrealistic expectations where people just want it all. And I'm trying to figure out how you're going to get it all when it's impossible. Because if you want a relationship, then you need to invest in a relationship. So where the class differences come in is you move up in the class, which means you move it up in a profession. Yeah, you become a lawyer, you become a doctor, you become partner, all this. But as you do all that, as you're working towards your goals, you aren't investing in relationship. And when you don't invest in a relationship, then it becomes difficult. To now you can be you 30 and you 31, you 32, you single, and you trying to find somebody to date. But it's like, bro, you literally I'm thinking about that woman's story. Like, how many people have you passed up
many, usually at that point.
Well,
Many.
yeah, exactly. By the time you get to that point.
And here's the old part about it too. It's like there has to be a willingness. This is what I appreciated so much about Mosaic. Shout out to her, Mosaic TJ Roundoff. She was willing to get online and say, "Yeah, I made some mistakes." I mean, everybody makes mistakes, but for some reason, a woman acknowledging that she was a problem in her relationship seems to be like off code. So, but that's what needs to happen, I think, especially when you start to have results like that are not working for you.
Yeah. My take on it, I like to hear what Obi has to say about this, but my take on the class piece is this. As a lifelong blue collar skilled trade union card carrying brother, 22 years. What I found, and Kevin has basically vindicated everything that I've been observing, to some extent experienced over that time. So this tells me that I'm right. Is my problem with the class piece is how so many black women can, with impunity, dump on blue collar brothers.
Mm.
One example of that is sisters with educations beyond high school, college education, advanced degrees. They will scapegoat the blue collar brother. Essence Magazine, Oprah, various academics, stuff like that. The idea of marrying down, all that sort of thing. And nobody asked them this question. Well, okay, you don't want to marry down to a blue collar brother because thus and so, your values and so on. Okay, got it. Got all of that. So riddle me this. What were you doing in college? Because we know, and here I'm going to shout out the Princeton mom, Susan Patton. She had an excellent book called Marry Smart. Her argument is for the white and Asian women, the Princeton moms, the soccer moms, the Jewish moms, the tiger moms. They got their man either in undergrad or grad school, or failing that, shortly thereafter. That's how they got their husband. They met their husband either during their undergraduate years, their grad school years, or shortly after they graduated all together out of college. So we're looking within 5 years that they got their guy. So the question has to be for these ladies that, they're educated, they got their own thing, they don't want to marry down to a blue collar guy. Got it. What were you doing during your college and shortly thereafter years? I'll tell you what they were doing. They weren't making finding a husband a priority. They ended up running out of time, like that lady you just described who wants to take things unto prayer now and in her 50s. They didn't make it a priority. And my position is this. Look, I'm not in the business of telling any sister to get with a brother that they don't want. Absolutely. I think the best thing going in the black community is that the marital rate went down, because I think one of the unintended consequences of the past were that people were getting together that should not have been together were it not for Jim Crow. So my position is, look, if that, I'm not telling you to marry the first dude that comes along, but just understand that you missed your window of opportunity. Susan Patton says in the book Marry Smart, you will never again. She tells white women at the very beginning of the book, you will never again come across this sheer number of the best of men worthy of you. Once you leave these college campuses, the number will continue to go significantly down. Don't hate on the brother who's a blue collar brother because you didn't make it a priority to get that man when you was in school. Or let's talk about this. You simply weren't competitive enough. Listen, the masters of the universe don't do fat chicks. I said they don't do fat chicks. Look at the guys who went to Princeton, Harvard, Yale, Columbia, Stanford. How many of them got Stacey Abrams on her arm? There's a reason why, as a young Yale graduate, she's still single right now, staring down 50. Guys like that don't do fat chicks. They ain't going to tell you that. They're not going to say it. So I'll say it. Dudes who go to Yale don't do fat chicks. Dudes who go to Princeton don't do fat chicks. Dudes who go to Amherst don't do fat chicks. Dudes who go to Morehouse don't do fat chicks. Dudes who go to the University of Pennsylvania don't do fat chicks. Dudes who go to Stanford don't do fat chicks. They don't.
I don't disagree.
I
don't
will say
disagree.
to his point though, the reason why a lot of them don't go after a mate during that time period because they say they don't want to be a mom yet, or they don't want to be a wife yet, because then now they're settling down too early, and they want to go ahead and. So, like, yeah, I mean, I agree with your point, but unfortunately, that's what they do. They consciously don't choose during that time period because they ain't trying to have no kids yet.
And that goes back to what I was saying earlier about wife culture, and there being a lack thereof. Because to Mr. Obsidian's earlier point, it's like you have books, of women in other cultures saying, basically putting them up on game on what to do and how to navigate, in their prime years. And that doesn't exist in our prime years. Women are told to focus on their careers, hot girl summer, to have fun and to not be serious. They're told to not be serious until the age where dudes are just like, okay, I'm grabbing my passports, or they're already married. You know what I mean? So it's a horrible strategy, to say the least. Real quick, so I want to answer these super chats, and then I'll get Alan's way. And it says, the cultural clinician with the 2. It says, our women practice cultural dimorphism. Thank you so much for the support, culture clinician. It's always good to have you in the chat. I don't know if you're still here, but I do appreciate the support. And then I also saw, where'd you go? The Black Men Rising. For the 10, it says, I'm for uplifting our sisters on our terms. Couldn't agree more. I think there does. Back to his point earlier, I think Culture Clinician's point earlier, it's like there has to be some boundaries and there has to be some self-respect, or else you can end up almost becoming a martyr, but wrongfully so. Shout out to Moto, their international mango lover. It says, Black men, it's time to travel the world. Life is too short to fight a losing battle and be miserable. I do not disagree. Like I said, if you can't find what you need out here, go where you can find it. No issues there. Freedman's Journal says I have not seen the hashtag SYSBM. Why is why is that? Why is that? I think we all already know the answer to that question. Although if anybody wants to weigh in, feel free to. Okay, and then I see Metacog says, the son asked his mom, should I fight for 50-50 custody? Mom says, you're a great father. Of course, why didn't she have the same sentiments for his father in their divorce? This right, ladies.
Hey, our people are funny people, bro.
No,
we are hilarious, bro. He's like, I can hear him saying, why she had it for his mom, for his dad? Then you gonna say that's the voice I rated it. Like, what is it?
Always keep you on your toes. Okay.
Yeah.
We're getting there. Okay. CJ Banks says, just like how. Okay. Wait, where'd you go? Okay. Just like how WNTT's wife is Black American, intercultural dating is the way. Ooh, this is not coming up. Sorry, y'all. Sorry about that. Okay. It says intercultural dating is the way forward to continue the Black race. Brothers, get your passport and get a Black woman from another nation or so-called third world. Like I said, I ain't got no issues with that. It's honestly, low-key, it just sounds like a better deal. Like, it really does sound like a better deal.
Shay, where are you from?
I'm from the Bay Area.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, people ask me all the
so
time.
You said there's not no other Black woman here that...
No, it's like... Okay, because, well, here's the thing. Just because I've been in the Bay Area my whole life, my family's been here for some time. I mean, they're originally from... A lot of my family's originally from Texas, but, my family and parents were born here, so it's like... I have a certain experience, but I know the Bay Area is like a bubble of a bubble. You see everything. You see everything. But I also understand that my experience or what I see on a day-to-day is not reflective of what's happening across the nation.
Yeah.
And, there's a lot of difference. Like anytime you travel, you'll see how different things are. So I'm like, I know beautiful, lovely, lovely Black women in Black families. And I also know people who are in interracial marriages. And I know people who are gay, I know all of that. But at the end of the day, it's like, just because I see certain things or this may be my experience, it may be hard for somebody who's in, like, I don't know, rural Kentucky, or you know what I mean? Or
I'm in Williamsburg, Virginia.
Huh?
So yeah, you probably don't know where that's at, right?
You said you're in Williamsburg, Virginia?
Yeah.
See, I don't have family in Virginia, really.
That's where they fought the Civil War.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. So it's like, I understand that basically my experience isn't everybody else's. And I'm also not a man. So it's like,
yeah, but I'm just saying, like, it gotta be some women here, like, that you know.
Oh yeah, I'm saying, okay, well, I will say most of my friends are married. I'll start that out. And kind of by default, when I was single, I wanted to be married. So I kind of was drawn to women who were like where I wanted to be. So most of my friends are married, and then the ones who aren't, I wouldn't recommend to anybody. But I will let you know.
Hey, yo.
And I tell them, I'm like, I'll tell them to their face, like, you're not good for yourself. So
they don't watch your show, do they?
They don't know because they're too into their self right now. But eventually, honestly, I talk to them personally, so they don't need to watch the show. They just get it direct. But yeah,
I'm still holding out. I'm like, hoping that fast.
Yes, and this is partially why, we can go back and forth about, okay, some people say, look, millennials are done. Yeah, but I'm like, I still think there's hope, and I think there's always a remnant, and there's also younger generations. So I'm like, okay, well, even if it's just like rested millennials got to go abroad, it's like you still got a chance maybe for Gen Z or some of the younger ones. So that's, I think, why these conversations are important, because you got young people who are still trying to find their way, and they're looking at the different instances, and it's like, I don't want them to just be able to see a Cynthia G, right? And that be their only reference point. Like, they need to be able to see different perspectives.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. But just to quickly recap from the last stunned silence moment I had. But my issue with the class piece is I do not like Black women of the type that I just described earlier, scapegoating blue collar brothers because of their failures to secure a brother on their level. They're never asked, and I think Dr. Harris would agree with me on this, in the academy, and I know he's heard it. He's heard what I'm talking about. But they're never asked, why didn't you secure a brother while you were in school? You're not going to sit there and tell me, no matter what school you went to, whether it was Stanford or whether it was, unless you went to Spelman, but Spelman has Morehouse. You're not going to sit there and tell me that there were no brothers in college when we have more brothers than ever in the history of the Union going to and graduating from college. We got 2.5 million Black men in the upper class. 83% of high-value Black men have a Black wife. You're not going to sit there and tell me that you couldn't find a brother when you was in school. Either you didn't make it a priority or you were not competitive for the kind of brothers you wanted. Just say that. Stop scapegoating the brothers who don't have the dais until the Black manosphere come along, who are in a position least to defend themselves. It's cowardly, okay? It's unconscionable, and it's unfair.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you, man. I don't know why it seems like it's hard for them to be self-reflective. I'm like, because remember, like, you're right. I know some of these people, and I hear them, like, they talk about this and this. They're like, well, I'm in this college town, and this dude is this way, and this is this. I'm like, I didn't hear I in there. Like, what about?
Yeah, right.
What about I? What about me? Like, I'm like, yeah. Come on, y'all.
Let me ask the panel a question on this point.
Well, okay.
Go ahead. Let me just
because I do want to be mindful. I know both Alan and Dr. Travis have some time constraints, so I do want to be mindful of everybody's time. I wanted to also give Alan a chance to weigh in on the question.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
And then we can go on to yours, Obsidian, if anybody can stay on.
If you don't mind restating the question,
Yeah,
because
no worries. I know we
it
kind
was
of
a
went on
while
a little
ago.
bit, but and guys, I did see other super chats, so I'll be sure to acknowledge that in a bit. I just want to make sure that they can share their piece. So, it was a question about class, whether or not you think class differences are making Black love difficult.
Well, so the short answer is absolutely. One of the things I'm really critical about my culture, Nigerian culture, Igbo culture, is that we tend to be a very classist people.
Okay.
And what I've been trying to, explain to some people is that, even the advent of this whole soft girl era thing, it has a lot to do with Nigerian women. The
Interesting.
soft life, it comes from a lot of Nigerian women, West African women. That's part of our slang. I'm sorry, and I say that because you know we all say in the manosphere or manosphere adjacent spaces that women are hypergamous. I mean, that's a known thing. However, the extent of their hypergamy nowadays, and I won't even say the problem is the extent of women's hypergamy. The problem is the hypergamy plus the lack of self-awareness, right? So if you want a job at Google, for instance, and I've used this metaphor. If you want a job at Google, for instance, you have to have a Google worthy resume, right? Similarly, if you want a man of a certain ilk, you have to look a certain way. You have to have a certain disposition. Um, and that's really just common sense. But again, part of the feminist programming that we talk about is this idea that women are benevolent, they're inherently worthy of everything. And I think it speaks to Obsidian's earlier point, which I bring up a lot during my interviews. Like, black men do not feel inspired by our women, right? And I think a lot of times the only way that we tend to articulate that is, through talking about people like Lizzo, or talking about belligerent women and the whole nine. And basically, what I've been saying is women or females of any species are supposed to be the prize. They're supposed to be the reason men compete. They're supposed to be the reason men do all kinds of great things in their lives, to compete for the opportunity to mate first, to mate with as many women as possible or females as possible. So, when we talk about the, feminine, beautiful, inspirational, the inspirational piece is, do I look at you and want to take on the world in service of you, or in service of potentially getting you? Do you make me feel like a man? Do you make me feel good? And unfortunately, that's not happening. But we're getting from the other side that's not properly doing its job. That these are some additional requirements we have of you. So you know, I think it's less about classism, and I think it's more about just self awareness. Um, because classism, water finds its level, that's fine. But when you have a McDonald's resume, but you want a job at Google, there's a problem there. So yeah, I think it's just self awareness.
No, that makes a lot of sense. So you're basically saying women, yeah, women wanting a man of a higher class or have a man who's established is nothing new. This is not surprising. This is
It's
pretty
natural.
natural. The issue is that women are just, there's no self-awareness and there's no understanding of where they rank within the dating market. If you have a couple
Exactly.
of kids and maybe you're a couple of pounds overweight and you're past 30, you don't need to be asking for someone that's making 6 7 figures, owns 2 homes,
Right.
can take you on vacation, give you private home. It's not happening.
And I mean, to play God's advocate again with the passport bros, like, I think some stats say that Brazil has some of the highest single mothers. And what the passport bros are saying is that, yeah, regardless of that being the case, those women are submissive, those women are soft, those women are feminine. And
Mm,
literally, that's all men have been saying, whether we've been articulate about it or not. It's like once you understand your shortcomings, I use a basketball analogy all the time. Everybody isn't born with a 40-inch vertical. But if you understand you don't have LeBron James genetics, what you can do is work on your crossover. You can work on your jump shot. And that type of game is going to sustain you longer than a LeBron James. But again, when we live in a world where everybody thinks they have a 40-inch vertical, there's no incentive to go to practice. And I think that's the case with our women these days.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I could not agree more. Shout out to Curtis Lawson with the 5 on the super chat. I know there are a few more I'm going to get to. But you guys all made some good points. So I do want to be mindful of time. Mr. Psunin, I know you had a question.
Yeah. And I'm glad that I'm able to get it under the wire here. So we're talking a lot about Black love, but let me ask the panel this question. I found that, in my personal opinion and observation, we don't view mating the same way that other groups in this country do. We are not as strategic about it. We don't seem to date or mate with a strategic or tactical goal in mind. We don't seem to make strategic alliances in mating. We don't seem to do things that way. The extent of it may be finessing or dinner whoring or something like that. It may be getting flued out. That may be the extent of it. But in terms of actual long-term mating, for whatever reason, and I'd be very interested in hearing what the panel thinks about this. For whatever reason, we don't look to make strategic alliances in mating. And I just wanted to know why that is.
Sure, I'll jump in there. I think, just from the interviews that I've been conducting, the general sense that I'm getting is that we're going to have to renegotiate what the traditional institution of marriage is going to look like for Gen Zers and Gen A'ers and generations to come, because a lot of the utility that marriage had back in the day, that encouraged two people who, as you put it earlier, might not even be well suited to get together and then stay together, those barriers and those incentives no longer really exist, right? Like, grandma don't have to stick with grandpa and vice versa, because she has her own job, he has his own job, and the whole nine. And economics was the primary reason for the institution to be established in the first place. So I think, like I said, we're gonna have to renegotiate some things. And I think, even Gen Zers, millennials who grew up in families where, yeah, mom and dad were together for 50 years, but it was a horrible example of partnership, and I want no parts of this. There are a lot of people along those lines. So I think that the institution is not going to work the same way that it used to. And because of that, I think our behaviors are in line with, if it doesn't fit my version of what I think it should be, I don't want it. Like, we saw the girl, I don't even know if it was a real thing, but she divorced her husband because she didn't want to pay like 20% of the bills, and now she has two jobs paying 100% of her bills, right? Like, a lot of people's disposition is, if it's not exactly what I want, I could do bad all by myself, whereas grandma and them couldn't do anything all by themselves. So we'll have to see how that turns out.
Yeah, if I can ask a follow-up question, could you give me just two quick, easy examples of what this renegotiation of Black love looks like? I'm just really curious about what that means in the context of my initial question.
No, not renegotiation of Black love, marriage specifically, the institution of marriage. I saw there was somebody on Twitter a while back. She suggested, and it was funny, but I thought it was worth conversation. But she suggested, what if marriage licenses are like driver's licenses? Every 5, 10, 20 or so years, you and your spouse get together, you decide if you're going to re-up. And if you decide not to, it's not a divorce, it's just an amicable split, and it's not as brutal as what currently happens. Some people have suggested polygamy, going backwards in that sense. But again, I think what we had, I don't know if it's going to look the same in the future, but for me, I just want Black men and Black women in cooperative partnership, even if even if it's not perfect, just cooperative partnership. And my goal is just to demonstrate how we can better converse and dialogue with one another.
Dr. Harris, I'd like to know what you think about
Yeah,
that.
I
Why
want
do
to
you
say.
think? Why do you think we, why do you think the idea of strategic mating eludes so many Black Americans? Why don't we do what people in Game of Thrones do? Why doesn't House House Johnson and House Williams, they get together and make a strategic alliance by marrying their son and daughter, and they make a strategic alliance? Why do you think we don't do that?
So I'm gonna preface my comment by saying I'm actually certified in working with marriages. I got training to work on this, and the biggest issue I've seen is that we don't know what to look for in a mate, right? And this is what your question is getting at. We're looking at how much money they make, how good they look, a lot of surface level things, and it's not that those things shouldn't be factored in, but these are being considered the most important things, right? She got a big booty. Does he make 100K or more? Is he 6 feet tall? But what goes into a relationship, getting that, like what you're talking about, right? What are your goals? What are the things that you're working towards in life? And how is it that we can work together to meet that, right? And then for women understanding men understanding women, for a lot of, and I can tell you this as a Black male studies scholar, a lot of people just don't understand Black men. So when they go into picking a Black man, right? And I know Black feminists, if they see this, they will go crazy over what I'm about to say, right? But there needs to be some level of, how do I understand a Black man? I can say this and people go crazy, but look, I can tell you one of the biggest things that Black men want is peace, right? We deal with all this stuff out in the world. When we come into our house, we don't want fussing and arguing and complaining. We want peace, right? So what happens is, when we look at the characteristics of what goes into a good relationship, right? Being able to understand each other, being able to fight, but fight fair, right? That's one of the things that we talk about, that I talk about in my training, right? Everybody gonna have disagreements, right? Everybody gonna have issues, but how is it that we can work out these issues, right? How the ability to communicate in such a way where we'll build each other up and not turn each other down, like all these things, right? So what happens is, we don't value those things in a mate. We don't value those problem solving, etc. Or like you're saying, what it takes to fulfill your purpose and dreams in life. We like, how do they look? How much money they make? And that's what you go after. So that, to me, I think that gets at the question that you're asking. Because what we really need is a reevaluation of what's important for choosing a spouse, or for choosing a mate, or choosing someone you want to spend the rest of your life with.
Totally, completely agree. I think you're so right with that. The picker's off. Picker's definitely off.
Yeah. I just find that we don't here's what I think. I think the reason why we don't do this is because I think a lot of Black men and Black women know deep down they really don't have anything to openly host trade with.
You said to hold trade with?
So you think like as far as not having anything to bring to the table, for lack of a better term?
Note the all of the tremendous pushback that Black women are giving that question. Keep in mind now, and I'm the old head on the panel. Keep in mind now, Black women have been asking this same question, demanding answers from Black men of this very same question for decades. But now that Black men are asking the same question to Black women, note the tremendous pushback. That's not by accident. People who have something to offer on the free market have no problem showing you their resume.
Fair point. Fair point.
People who truly know their worth, see what I did there? They have no problem showing you their resume with references you can check.
Yeah.
It's true. That's true.
And what I'm saying is, I think part of the reason why we don't do that way, we just don't straight up do a quote unquote business deal, is because we have nothing to trade with that other people want and value. We just don't have that much worth in the open free market of love. Like one of the things I say to ladies all the time, what do I offer? How much is it worth to you, ladies, to have a man that don't cheat on you? Because I know what the numbers are. And it's fascinating to me that black women that tout so much about their educations haven't sat down and actually run the numbers. I know how much the average affair costs. And we know that what goes for white America goes for black America at least double, so we can double down on how much that costs. We know that in black America, black men cheat the most out of everybody, but don't clap too much, ladies, because y'all right behind. It's right in my second book. We talked about it.
It's 25% and 24%.
Yeah. So my first question right off the rip, how much is it worth to you to have a man that don't cheat on you? How much is that worth to you?
And the same for us. How much is it for us to not have a woman? Because people think the women don't cheat, and they do.
Oh, yeah. Matter of fact, the number one reason why black women cheat is for sexual pleasure. Number one. There are four main reasons why black women cheat. The number one reason, sexual pleasure. So that would be my first question right off the rip. How much is it worth to you to not have a man cheat on you? How much is that worth? Or maybe it's not worth anything. Because we can look at how Derek Jackson got treated. Black women were dancing on Kevin Samuel's grave. He never cheated on either of his wives. Derek Jackson was cheating on his wife left and right. In the marital bed, black women didn't cancel him. So maybe it don't mean nothing.
Yeah, well, I mean,
we do need a realignment. We need to realign our values, right? And I can tell you that that's what I've been trying to work on with my work, with getting people to understand. Like, we need to focus on what's important, and of course, this all has to go with the decline of the institution of marriage across the board. But for us as black people, like we need to be building up our people, and letting them know, like, speak the truth in love. Like this is what you need to be looking for, not just a six pack.
Completely agree. Could not agree anymore. Well, I do want to be mindful. I know you said that you had to head off pretty soon, Dr. Travis. So feel free to. I don't know if you have any maybe other final thoughts, and then after that,
I want to close with this. I love black people. I love all black people. I still believe in black women all over the world, and even black women in this country. I still think if I can, I mean, my situation is particular, but if I have the opportunity to marry a black woman born in the United States, I would. And I'm only interested in black women, and I would like for black men to only be interested in black women. Like I said, I understand if they're not, but I still believe in black love. I still have faith. I still have hope. I've seen examples of it. I've seen all of it. I've seen the bad. I've experienced the bad, but I've also seen the good. Since I've seen the good, not just in my immediate. I mean, but I'm internationally known. So like in my circles, my worldwide circles, I've seen it. So I still believe in black love, and I still believe that with black love and black unity, it brings black power. And with black power, it brings black freedom. So I'll leave with that.
Well, thank you for hanging out, for answering your different questions. You guys, be sure to check him out. Link to his different social profiles in the description. You can find him on Twitter. Also, it's Twitter and YouTube. Are there any other places you want the direct audience to? Facebook.
Yep.
Yes. Well, thank you for hanging out. This has been fun.
Yeah. Peace.
Yeah, you have a good one. Okay, so I do have a few more super chats. Mr. Obsidian, you're free to hang on if you want, or head out. But I wanted to make sure I just got through some of the other questions and super chats. Because there were a few that were coming in. Shout out to D. Scott, says, "What's good, Travis? Thank you for the love and the support with the 10 on the super chat. I also saw, let me see, because I did see quite a few other ones come in here. You guys, for those of you who are hopping on, hit that like button. Likes are free. Also, shout out to Hakeem. Hakeem, I saw that 10 on the Cash App. It's always good to have you in the building. Thank you for your constant support. Okay, let's see. Where else did you go? And thank you for joining, Mr. Obsidian. I know this is kind of last minute, but it was great to have you on, especially
it's my pleasure.
Your books. So
my pleasure. We have to do it more often.
Yes, yeah. Well, I don't know if you saw the initial, but I wanted to talk to both of them because they are two individuals that I know who have been open about Black love, open about being Pan-Africanist. And so I wanted to kind of get their perspective on the current dating and mating market. But it was interesting to hear them both say that, there's certainly double standards. Dr. Travis mentioned how Black girl magic is toxic, and even his different experiences with feminism and the different ways that that's actually impacted him. So very interesting. I see Barry Hamilton, great discussion, Shay Shrede. To seek Black love seems joyless and an obligation, as Roberts Flack and Donnie Hanaway saying, where is the love? And as what Alan said, he's like, you know what? If people feel this way, I get it. That's your right. No one's here to convince anybody. If your experience has been filled with trauma and you want to try something different, and that means you got to go abroad, or you're comfortable dating or marrying out, no one, not here to convince you otherwise.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a great conversation. I'm glad that we had it. And I do agree with Obi to the extent that we do need a kind of reshuffling of the deck chairs. I'm not against that.
Yeah, that was interesting. You're talking about a marriage. That was an interesting point about renegotiating what it would look like. I certainly agree as far as what that would mean in the dynamic between men and women. But I wonder, okay, does that mean laws? Because I think that's the only way I could see there being a generation of men who would say, you know what, okay, I would consider this. Is if there was
the question of laws being changed is an interesting one. I was thinking more along the line. Of there's a very interesting question here. Mm-hmm. Are Black women feminists, or are Black women more traditionalists? So this is a very interesting question here, because if Black women are more traditionalists, as Kevin has proven, soft girl life, etc., so forth, if that's the model that Black women predominantly follow, then we really don't change much, because Black women aren't asking Black men to change much. On the other hand, if we're talking about an egalitarian, read feminist, equality, read feminist view, then that requires not only Black men to change, it requires Black women to change. So let's look at some of the ways that Black women would have to change. Number one, Black women would have to do at least half of all approaches. Number two, Black women would have to pay for at least half of all first dates.
Yeah.
That's what it means to be feminist. You are rejecting the patriarchal model. The patriarchal model holds that men, in this case Black, approach first. The patriarchal model holds that men, in this case Black, pay for all dates. So if you are a feminist woman, you reject that model.
Yeah.
So which one is it? What do Black women want? I think that's the fundamental question. Before we can even get to a renegotiation of terms in terms of relationships or marriages, we have to find out exactly what do Black women want.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree at all.
If you want Black men to pay for everything, then the next question becomes, then what are and take the lead? Okay, leaders. And I like using the royalty model because so many Black men and Black women love to think of themselves as royalty. Well, kings reward and punish. That's how it works. If you have a leader that is unable to reward and punish, they have a word for that in our political system. Do you know what they call a president that is unable to reward and punish? There's a word for that. You know what they call it?
No. Actually.
They call it a lame duck.
Okay.
Okay. So if black women want effective leaders, that means they have to be able to reward and punish. If they can't reward and punish, are black women saying they want lame duck leader black men? Or they're just a lame duck? He's just a rubber stamp?
No, definitely not saying that.
So I mean, exactly what do black women want? That is a real question here.
I think before, my personal opinion, I think before there can be a clear cut guideline as to what the collective of black women want, the collective of black women would first have to deal with their own stuff. Because you mentioned earlier this feeling of, at the end of the day, there's not a sense that you have something good or valuable to bring to the table. And if that is a true sentiment, that there's this fear, this insecurity that I have nothing good to bring to the table, that's the kind of stuff that people need to deal with. That's the kind of spiritual, emotional, metaphysical work, right, that needs to be done. And I'm not talking just do manifest tarot cards and then blame black men through tarot cards. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about real life work where you got to humble yourself. And
I find that the free market has a powerful way of doing just that. The free market humbles you in a way that nothing else will. You can determine, and I'm applying that principle to the mating market, to black love, if you will. For ladies, it's very easy to find out where you rank. You can find out based on the kind of men you regularly attract. That tells you where you rank. If all you seem to attract are 3 trash bag dusties, well, there you go. For example.
But I guess when I say humbling, I would also say an acceptance of that, because you can be humbled and still be in your delusion. There are women who will die never being honest with themselves. And so I'm saying you can't, if a person has never even been honest with themselves, they can never clearly define what they need, because they don't know what they need. They don't even know what they're doing.
Yeah.
So
that is not an attractive trait in a woman. You mentioned the lady earlier who was somewhere in her 50s. Mm-hmm. Let me tell you, that is not an attractive trait for a woman that's older. That's not an attractive trait. You can get away with it in your teens, early 20s, maybe around mid to late 20s. You might be able to get away with that, depending on if you're really attractive to begin with. And this is a harsh truth. I know a lot of ladies don't like to hear it. The less attractive you are as a woman, the less you can get away with. That's just the plain truth. You can get away with a lot if you're really hot. You can get away with have a bitchy attitude. You can get away with being an airhead. You can get away with being a Punky Brewster, type. But if you're, bratty kid sister, yeah, you can get away with that if you're hot. But if you're not hot and you're just, basically playing the kind of homely, you don't really have a lot to get away with. You just don't.
You aren't lying about that. Pretty privileged. It's a thing. It's a real thing. So, okay, also real quick, I want to get these other super chats and then we should be good. Shout out to Curtis Larson with the 5. I also saw you send in a 20 earlier, so thank you so much for that. I see F Holiday with the 5. The lovely Wales comes with expensive future medical bills that the average earner simply cannot afford. They belong to the sea. Whoa. That's one way of referring to them. Lovely Wells.
Well, here's the medical bills that I'm talking about. Do you know that ED is one of the major causes of medical problems in Black America today?
You said who?
ED.
ED.
Yes.
Why am I drawing up? I'm sorry. Maybe I should know this. ED.
Erectile dysfunction.
Oh, okay. I'm like, what is ED? What? You're saying that's bringing people within the.
Well, when we talk about medical issues with regard to Black women's weight, I'm saying that one of the biggest medical issues going is ED.
Oh, got it. In reference to his comments. Well, that goes back to your earlier point. Not very popular, and I'm sure incredibly offensive, but nonetheless, you put it out there that there is a beauty deficit. And your argument, what was interesting about your argument is that you didn't mention the Eurocentric beauty standard so much. You didn't mention the dark skin or the kinky hair or the West African features, these different things that colorist queens or whatever like to use as a way to paint black men as colors. He didn't mention that. He mentioned weight.
Well,
that was the thing that, from what I took away, that's the thing that
I actually did talk about colorism in the book.
Well, I remember that one part where you were saying, yeah, being more closely aligned to classical beauty standards. You did say that.
Yeah,
but I never.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, but I never got the sense. Correct me if I'm wrong. I never got the sense that you were saying, if you're dark skinned, just know they're going to be ugly and get over it. I didn't say that. No. Yeah. So,
but what I will say is the ladies that are doing a lot of complaining, I hate to say this since we're on the topic, it's not them being dark skinned that's the problem. It's them being kind of homely that's the problem. I mean, I know a lot of women in general, black women in particular, are getting taken in by, marketers and people, playing with their psychology. But the simple truth of the matter is that all women cannot be beautiful, just like all men cannot be super handsome and successful and rich. That's just a fact of life. But what you can do is you can kind of, tweak around the margins by, getting more in shape, being more agreeable, being more pleasant. You can kind of, change things on the margins in that way. But all women aren't beautiful. There are a whole bunch of light-skinned women that are beat in the face. You kidding me? Being a butterface ain't just regulated to dark-skinned chicks. There's a whole bunch of light-skinned women that are butterfaces.
I for one know dark-skinned women who are gorgeous. I'm like, could grace the cover of the magazine. Some of them model. Like, I know dark-skinned women off the top of my head that are gorgeous who I've never once heard complain about colorism. Now I've never sat down and actually asked them about it, but the different discourse we had the time that I knew them, it was never like a pervading thought. It was never like always on their mind. They were always had men, always had attention. You know what I mean? So,
I find that the women that complain about colorism, look at them. I mean, nobody's going to accuse them of being a beauty queen. And instead of them just accepting it and saying, okay, what can I do to move forward here? They want to, blame everybody else. And it's not attractive past a certain age. Black female sympathy in general. So this isn't a racial thing. Female sympathy in general only extends so far. So there's a very famous, she's white and, if I'm not mistaken, Polish, or Polish extraction. Her name is Paulina Paraskova. Mm-hmm. Very famous swimsuit model from back in the 80s. Okay. She made the cover of Sports Illustrated twice, right? Very famous fashion model, married to a famous rock star who's now deceased. The whole bit. She got upset because she's getting older. She's well into her 50s now. And she's not getting the same attention from men that she used to as a younger woman. Well, I
think I saw that one. I think I saw O'Shea cover that.
Yeah, and me and Miss Brown Sugar talked about it too. And my point is that, there's an upper limit for what women can get from society in terms of playing the sympathy card. At some point, you run out. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm saying that's just the way it is. You can get sympathy when you're a younger woman. You can get all kind of care and attention and all kind of stuff. That runs out at some point. That's just how it goes.
Yeah, no, you're right. Okay, real quick, let me get the rest in here. All in Stranger, thank you for the $9.99. It says the most belligerent black women aren't the superstars. It's the free agent bench players who barely deserve the vet minimum. At 36, you had your chance back in school. We were lame, right? Hold that, fam. And this is not, it's not uncommon to hear black men, who are now successful. Women didn't give them the time of day when they were in college and when they were building. Talk about how some of these women who are complaining now just didn't want them. Well, when it comes to
being, to use the phrase, being a high value man is a multi-decades project.
Yeah.
Okay. And you're going to face a lot of setbacks. You're going to face a lot of, obstacles. Things are not going to always work. And by the way, not all brothers that set out on that path make it. There's inherent risk. Not all for every brother that makes it, there's quite a few who didn't, for whatever reason. Some of it is just bad luck. Some of it's bad timing. Some of it's they made the wrong move. You know, it could be in any number of reasons. But the way of life for men is risk. If you're a man and you're not willing to take risk, you're pretty much out of the game. Okay. Well, for the ladies, they have to take risks too. They have to take a gamble that the man that they're with will make it. And some of them won't. That's just how that goes. Black women want to try to get around that by saying they don't want to struggle love. They want the brother that's already built. Well, brothers that are already built want something. They want to already, just like you don't want to build a boo, they don't want to build a babe. You don't want to build a boo, and he don't want to build a babe. Just like you want that, you know, plug and play brother come right out the box, you know, from the Apple store. You get that real nice computer out the Apple store and it looks really great. And I know because I got quite a few Apple products myself. You get no argument from me, but they're quite pricey. Well, it's the same thing for the guys. They want IG model grade. So,
yeah,
you know, that's how that goes.
No lies told. No lies told.
That's how it goes. And the problem that we have insofar as black love is concerned, we have black men willing to tell other black men about themselves. For 3 years, Kevin labored in the vineyard in obscurity, telling black men what they had to do to get their act together. People only cared when he started telling black women. Black women have a battalion of black men, and let's be clear, it is black men. Black women don't want to hear from black women. It's black men. They have a battalion of black men that tell them what they want to hear, pour honey in their ear, and tell them that it's everybody else's fault, especially black men's. I know black men who are dedicated gym rats. They go to the gym and pump iron religiously every day and will not say to their audience, and I know for a fact that this is true, they will not discuss the weight issue with them. They won't do it. It won't.
Yeah.
So until these things are addressed, it's going to be very hard to see how black love is going to be saved. Until those things are addressed. Until black women can answer definitively, what do they owe the black community? As the mothers, as the ladies, as the queens of the community. Until they can give definitive answers. Not amorphous, quasi-metaphysical word salad. Definitive answers. Until they can do that, we're not going to be able to really make any headway on black love. Until black women decide definitively once and for all, are they black feminists and want equality and want to be equal partners? Or are they black women that want to be women of leisure and want to be soft girls and want to reap the benefits? And if that's the case, then what the black man says who is providing that goes. He is the undisputed lord and master of the domain. Black women have to decide.
No, I agree. Well, I'll say this to that point, and then I'll go and try to finish the rest of the super chats. All of the different variables that have been mentioned in this discussion, many of the variables that you laid out in your books, even the dystopian chapter that I referenced in your previous book or your last book that you if there isn't a significant change, at the very least in Black America, then I think we will start to see, in my humble opinion, we will start to see more mixture. I think we will start to see more. I don't think we're going to see a ton of interracial marriages, but I think we might see a ton of mulatto children or mixed children. Like I said, this is assuming things do not change. And as far as Black love, yeah, I'm in agreement with what Alan and Dr. Travis had said, as far as, like, I don't think Black love itself is necessarily ever going to go away. I mean, you'd have to do away with the continent of Africa at that point. And I mean, they are suspected, I think, they have, I think, the youngest population, I think, of all continents, if I'm not mistaken. Like their average population is incredibly young. They have a ton of kids. So that's not going anywhere. Right. But as far as like in like America, like Black American culture, or the ADOS, FBA or whatever, is that going to exist? That's questionable. And I'm like I said, if it does, we might look a whole lot lighter. And I would not be surprised if Black culture, at the very least in America, we started to see a clear distinction of just like, okay, these are Black immigrants, or these are people who are legitimately from the diaspora because they have a really strong cultural context, and these are Black folks in America and they're looking like Kamala Harris and Andrew Tate. But I could be wrong. I could be wrong. So just my observations.
Yeah, we'll see. It's possible. It's a possibility. Can't rule it out. I'm very cautious because social media, if you're not careful, will give you an impression of things that may not be true in reality. So I'm very cautious about that.
Yeah. No, I agree. So I'm saying I don't know. It's just this is thoughts. I haven't done a real serious deep dive. I'm just saying, like, okay, if things trend, worst case scenario, if worst case scenario happens and everything that that investors are saying is true, and we get the most radical anti-Black female, like if those people win, then this is what this might look like.
Yeah.
But we'll see. Okay. Real quick, better you, when it comes to Black men, why the collective of us judge and painted like we are all the worst representation of us? Feminism, that's what I'd say. Feminism is largely responsible for that. Let's see. Corvus Gullet, I hope I didn't butcher that, but I'm sorry if I did. Says there's going to be a chapter in my upcoming book, Black Feminist and Their 30 Pieces of Silver. Oh, man. Well, this has been a fun conversation. This went a lot longer than I expected, but I guess I should have been prepared because I know Black love is it's always a good topic. Oh, here's another one from...
It's at the heart of everything. I mean, I was talking with Dr. Tia San Johnson. He's going to be my special guest this coming weekend. We're going to do a Saturday night special show. And he made a really interesting point during our Facebook call. He said that, the Black manosphere is often, maligned as just talking about dating. And I said, well, if a nation, in this case, a Black nation, what is a Black nation made of? A Black nation is made of communities, and communities are made of families, and families are made of couples. If Black men and Black women can't fundamentally get along, what kind of nation are we going to have? It affects everything: business and commerce, politics and civics, education, defense. It affects everything. So the Black manosphere is once again the tip of the spear here. We got our finger on the pulse of what actually matters. Black men and Black women getting along is crucial to everything else in terms of a healthy Black society.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I completely agree. I mean, and honestly, it's what people can relate to, because that's what it means to be human. To be human is to have a relationship and to have families and connections. And without it, depression happens. So it's like, it's innate with who we are, and it makes sense that this will be something that is constantly in everybody's mind because it's what we need to survive to a certain extent.
Right. And we're very new at this because, like I said, we were only set free back in the 1960s. So truly. So, we're very new to all of this. We still have to kind of, work all this out and shake it all out. So I am hopeful that we can, but time will tell.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, we will see for sure. Okay, better you. Black love is definitely worth it. I feel the solution is dialogues between men and women. There's uncomfortable truths that have to be said and heard. Could not agree more.
Here. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Okay, well, this has been a fun, like I said, fun one, longer than I expected, but I think I got all the super chats. If I didn't, guys, let me know. But thank you guys for tuning in. Thanks for hanging out. Oh wait, no, you know what? I missed this one. Sorry about that. Davius Davis. It says, Shay, great live stream. I'm just an average man. I'm 5'11", and I only make $80K. After taxes, it's extremely tough dating. My friends only set me up with single mothers because I don't make enough for a childless woman. Whoa. I mean, maybe I'm weird. I don't see anything average first off about making $80K. I mean,
yeah, he's above average height. He's definitely in the top 13% of Black male money earners. What I would say to him is two things: one, move; two, dump your friends.
I
We
would
need
agree.
new friends.
You know what? Yeah, because it's just like I see nothing wrong with that. So yeah, I pretty much agree with abstaining, or at the very least expand your circle. Like expand your circle. Okay, we're on some great point. For those who travel, my question is, do you believe Black men are loved in America? If so, is it to the same extent as abroad? I think if the collective of men felt like they were loved and respected in America, the manosphere would not exist. Or if it did exist, they would be talking about different stuff. But I think the very fact that there's a need for a collective of men to voice their concerns and their challenges and their issues with relationships, I think kind of answers that question.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I got to hand it to FD Signifier. I know you was thinking of doing a response to that, and I hope you do, because I'd love to ride shotgun when you do.
Yeah, I'll let you know. I haven't honestly watched any of it. I just heard
you want to take a day out, take a Sunday out, or I know you're pretty devout, but take a day off. I'll put it that way. Take a day off and get you your favorite beverage and kind of curl up and watch it. It's a heck of a presentation, nearly 3 hours in length, and keep a notepad so you can keep your notes and all the rest of it. It's a slog. It's a slog.
Okay, because I was going back and forth if I just want to do, because I did a poll and I think about 60% of people said that they wanted me to do a breakdown. So I'm like, okay, I just want to do. It's 3 hours, so no way I'm going to just review the whole thing. I'm like, do I just want to do a certain snippet, or do I want to just call out certain pieces? So I have to think about how I want to review it. But you made a good point.
Yeah.
So
and he conceded a number of really good points.
Okay.
And I'm saying this in relation to the idea that the Black manosphere exists for, because that it really comes down to that at the end of the day, that the Black manosphere is illegitimate. I mean, really, when you boil it all down, that's what the detractors are trying to essentially say, is that the Black manosphere itself is illegitimate because the concerns of the Black men within it is illegitimate. And if that's true, then how do we explain FD Signifier, who is a pointed critic of the Black manosphere, conceding key points that I laid out both in my response videos and in writing?
Yeah, fair point.
Both can't be true. Either the Black manosphere is legitimate or it's not. Both can't be true.
Oh, so you're saying so it's like he can't be agreeing with you at the same time, but then say everything's illegitimate.
Right.
It's contradictory. No, that makes sense. Well, I mean, I'm like, is that not feminism? Aren't there not aspects of feminism? It's like it's double standards, for lack of a better term.
It is.
For example,
I'm reading an article right now from the Washington Post about this because I'm doing a show tonight where I make the argument that Black men are the biggest Black feminists of all. It's not Black men.
This isn't. It's not even an argument. There's historical proof to that. I mean, some of the earliest feminists, and if you look at feminism, I think first wave, Black men were largely in support of that because they saw it as connected to liberation for Black people in America. So there's historical evidence for that. And I mean, and even if you want to depending on how far you want to go, there's different argument about, even if you understand how societies in Africa treated their women and how it was different than societies in Europe, and how in a lot of African societies, women were a lot more verbal and a lot more involved in some of the different day-to-day affairs, and that translating into why now you basically, if you look at the way American women are, they're a lot more verbal. Black women are a lot more verbal. They're a lot more verbose. They're very talkative. Some sociologists will say that there's a historical connection to that, but I don't want to go too much on a tangent. But
just making the point that I'm reading an article right now in preparation for tonight's show. And the feminists, this is white people now. The feminists are, they believe that the woman should have the choice to make a first move, but in practice they don't.
Yeah, they don't.
That goes to your point about the double-mindedness, the contradiction. It's just it's ridiculous.
No, I know. I hear you. Okay, see Captain America of the Black manosphere in the building. Salute. Thank you for the super chat. Well, this has has been, like I said, a really, really good conversation. I got some great snippets that I'll be able to get from this from this whole thing.
Yeah.
So thank you for calling in. I will be in contact for sure about setting up some other time to maybe do a breakdown or whatever of some stuff. I haven't had a chance to check out your second response, but I will.
Very good.
It's on my to-do list, and I'll be in contact.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
All right, you have a good one.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right, guys, this has been fun. This is a really, really fun one. I appreciate all of y'all who've been hanging out with me this whole time, showing love and support. If you haven't already, please hit the like button. Also, if you would like to become a channel member, you can do so for as low as $4.99 a month. We have fun over there. Try to keep it more personal. We're able to have more disconnection. I do a lot of behind the scenes stuff there too, and get their feedback. So yeah, join. Oops, what's that? Sorry about that. Join if you haven't. $4.99 each month, and stay tuned for other upcoming content, videos, lives. Be sure to hit the notification bell so that you are informed each time I go live, each time a video drops. And you can find me on Cash App or Venmo, Shay Sade, for those who want to show further support to this channel. And thank you so much for hanging out with me, for contributing, commenting, liking, disagreeing, all that. Appreciate all of you guys. And yeah, we'll talk later. Okay, bye.